Tonight, Firestorm finally reverts back to the old Professor Stein version because DC saw nothing wrong with an older professor trying to get into the body of a younger student. Aquaman sets up his first embassy in the US and immediately engages in some grade A torture. And Harley's Little Black Book has Zatanna in it, which means the sex jokes just don't stop. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 242 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and today, as of the day of publishing this, is April 20th. Otherwise known as 420. That's the stoner date. Get it? Yeah, I really have nothing else to say about that. I was really hoping, because this week has a Poison Ivy book coming out, I was hoping that like DC editorial was going to do just something. And also there's a Harley book as well. Like just, it's like the perfect combination where you could put out something that just really take advantage of the funny weed number. But no, there was nothing. I had to name the episode Bud just for the sake of like, well, technically in the Poison Ivy book, there's look, I take great pride in the naming of these episodes. Some of them, absolutely, pitch perfect. I love how I managed to time them up with things. This one was weak, and it was because DC gave me nothing to work with. Thanks for nothing. Anyway, let's take a look at what books we got coming out this week. This week we have, in roughly alphabetical order, Action Comics, Aquaman, Dr. Fate, The Flash, Harley's Little Black Book, Legends of Tomorrow, Martian Manhunter, Poison Ivy Cycle of Life and Death, Robin, Son of Batman, Superman, Lois and Clark, Titans Hunt, and Wonder Woman. And then for anybody who isn't aware of that Legends of Tomorrow book, that is an anthology series, so I will be covering 4 full-length issues that are all part of one book, and they are Metal Men, not in this order, Metal Men, Sugar and Spike, Metamorpho, and Firestorm. So check those out. They are clearly going to be amazing stories if they could not be justified to get their own book. So yeah, like I said, I really wanted this to be something more funny for funny weed date, but I got nothing. 420 blaze it. Action Comics number 51, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Paul Pelletier. So, continuing on Final Days of Superman. Last issue, we had Superman talking to Batman, trying to get some information as to where Supergirl is, because Superman believes that she needs to take over the role. And then they got attacked by a bunch of creatures that looked like the Chinese Zodiac. So we open up this one where Superman's locked on to Kara. We see that the DEO has a site in National City, and they're like, oh, Superman's flying in. Looks like he's going to be literally right here on top of us. And then as soon as they're done with the sentence, he just busts in through a door, and we see Supergirl is under some form of sedation. She's being tested, like stuff like that's happening. So immediately he just launches his heat vision, shorts out the machines, rips it open. The entire time, all the DEO people are like, Superman, actually. And he's like, shut it. I don't want to hear it. I'm getting my cousin out of here. So he grabs hold of Kara and zooms off. Kara wakes up, no longer under sedation, and is like, hey, I'm saving you from being a lab rat. And she's like, that's not what, I didn't need your saving. That's not what happened. He's like, well, I haven't heard from you from weeks. And she's like, sorry, didn't realize I had to check in with you that often. And she basically explains like, yeah, look, I was there on my own volition. I showed up there because I wanted to. Superman's like, what? Why? And then she basically explains what happened post her series. So she was like, yeah, I started feeling weird and tired and all this stuff when I was working at that coffee shop, and then your secret identity got leaked, and so that made problems tougher for me when I was out being Supergirl, and I started getting weaker and weaker, and she attributes that to Vandal Savage draining all the powers of the people, like the superheroes. But that doesn't make any goddamn sense, so I don't really know. But regardless, she's like, yeah, one time it was like a switch was flipped. I lost all my powers, and so I went to the DEO because Cameron Chase said, hey, we'll keep you off the grid. We'll see what's up with you, and then you can get back out there. So they gave me some sort of serum thing, which kept me going a little bit, but it was just short bursts. We're trying to get this to be a long-term thing here. And then she's like, yeah, so that's what I was doing. And then Superman's just like, that's great, I'm happy to. And he starts falling out of the sky. Supergirl goes down to grab him, and she's like, hey, what's up with you? You seem like you also were having a similar thing. He's like, no. Look, I came here to tell you that pretty soon you're going to be the last survivor of the House of L here on Earth. You're going to need to deal with that. So we cut over to China, and we see there's some temple on the side of a mountain that has a bunch of lab stuff in it, and we see that the dragon dude who was part of the Chinese Zodiac, the one who managed to draw blood from Superman, comes in and starts talking to Dr. Omen, and Omen's like, where are the rest of them? And he's like, they all killed themselves rather than being questioned, but I was successful in my task. And he shows off his claws, which have Superman's blood on it, and she's like, perfect, put your claw on the table. And she cuts it off, and he's like, anything for you, Dr. Omen. She's like, yeah, I'll work hard on making you a new one soon enough, but for right now, we got to move fast with this thing. So then we go to the Daily Planet, and I reasonably believe that the guy who has Superman powers is having some amount of a schizophrenic breakdown where he believes he's Clark Kent. And so he walks in and he's like, hey, how's it going, Eddie, security guard? And he's like, do you have a pass? He's like, you know me, I'm Clark Kent. And he's like, no, you aren't. And then this guy just like punches the Eddie in the throat and then steals his glasses so that he can do the full Clark Kent routine. The entire time he's doing this, he's acting as Clark Kent, but then there's this alternate speech bubble that pops up that's just like, oh, you're drawing too much attention. You're messing this all up. You're ruining this. This is all going wrong. So he makes his way through the office. He's saying hi to everybody. Eventually he gets to Lois and is like, oh, hey, want to grab lunch today? And she's like, what? Who are you? And then he makes it to his desk. However, because Clark theoretically does not work at the paper currently, this is no longer his desk. And when he finds somebody else sitting there, he just throws him aside and just tosses him. He's just like, nothing to see here, folks. Just another day at the Daily Planet. A bunch of security guards come up. They're about ready to take him out because, who the hell is this guy? And then he screams out, my name's Clark Kent. And then he heat visions the security guards to death, realizes that his glasses are now ruined, and then turns out to the rest of the people who else here doesn't think I'm Clark Kent? To which point Lois tases him, knocks him out, and just like, hey, Perry, you might want to call somebody, like Argus or something. So we go up to the Fortress of Solitude, and Cal is letting Kara in and is just like, okay, look, here's the deal. I take a look at this. And he pulls up all these screens, which have all this Kryptonian text on it. And he doesn't explicitly say what it is, but he's just like, look, I'm not going to be here. I'm letting you have the fortress and all of the Kryptonian knowledge inside. It's going to be yours. You need to keep up the birthright and all that sort of stuff. And she's like, look, Superman's kind of a hot button issue right now. There's still a bunch of people who don't like you. I don't know if I should be doing that. Maybe I should be under the radar. And he's like, no, it's totally right for them to fear us. I think I would be in their shoes as well. But this isn't about us and how we feel about it. This is about keeping them safe. And he shows a picture of a whole bunch of civilians. And he's just like, you are so much stronger than you give yourself credit for. You can handle this. Here's the key to the fortress. And she's like, you gave me a key already. And he's like, no, that's a key to half my stuff. This is for everything. This can be a sanctuary when you need it, all that stuff. And while he's talking, he puts the key into this pedestal, and then he's like, and you'll never ever be alone. And a giant holographic Cal head pops up saying how he's always going to be there for him. So he has Supergirl promise. He's like, can I count on you? And she's like, yeah, of course you can. And as they're going to leave, and Superman's like, all right, I've still got a bunch more stuff to do. Don't worry, I'm not dead yet. Standing outside the fortress, properly pissed off, is Wonder Woman, going, when the hell were you gonna tell me? Next issue, Superman, Wonder Woman. Who would have thought? Yeah, it's fine. I do think that the bit with the solar Superman thinking that he's Clark Kent feels a little out of place. In all the previous stuff, when he was Superman, he believed he was Superman. That wasn't a problem. But when he snapped back into his human form, he was still just the guy. He was still just some rando. So that part feels a little bit weird in terms of not gelling with the previous chapters. Same sort of thing with the Supergirl. I wouldn't even call it a retcon, just a fill-in, the idea of what she was doing in the middle there, where her last chapter, we saw that she was essentially losing her powers, or she was able to be hurt. And then to say all that was Vandal Savage just doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, maybe that's not exactly what they're saying, but that's the gist of what I got. Either that, or we just didn't get an explanation as to why she was feeling weak to begin with, which I guess fair, if we just didn't get an answer. Beyond that, I don't really have any major problems with it. It all worked out nice. I like the Dr. Omen stuff. It's clear that we're doing a bigger thing there. So, yeah, I'll say this one is at least 7.5. It's good. It's not great. It's not quite up to that standard, but I'm enjoying it so far. Poison Ivy, The Cycle of Life and Death, number 4, written by Amy Chu, art by Robson Rocha, Julio Ferreira, and Ethan Van Sciver. So last issue we had, I believe there was another death. There was the death of the coworker for sure. But then Darshan showed up at Poison Ivy's apartment as she was in full Poison Ivy gear, and also Catwoman was there. So we pick up this issue with Darshan being strung up. Selene is just walking around Poison Ivy's apartment like, oh, hey, nice place you got here. Super cute outfit, all that stuff. By the way, who's the dude? And he's just like, oh, he's a colleague. He's an epigeneticist and all that stuff. And so they let him down once he promises that he's not going to be yelling or screaming or scaring any of her plants. And we get Darshan's inner monologue this whole time and just like, okay, you hit it off with the cute girl. The cute girl turns out to be a supervillain to some extent, so this is totally crazy, and I can try to run, or I can just roll with it and see where it takes me. So we see that Catwoman is trying to catch up with Poison Ivy and is just like, oh yeah, hey, you got pictures of Harley here, how's she's doing? And Poison Ivy's like, don't really want to talk about that, it's not on good terms right now. And then Darshan starts freaking out because seemingly the babies, the little plant growth things, have been biting him, and he's like, oh god, get it off me. So Catwoman asks for an explanation of how she has kids. She explains the whole process, and yeah, they're bitey and all that, but Poison Ivy calls them over, so Rose and Hazel, and it's just like, hey, no, down, they'll learn. They learn super quickly. They're on an accelerated thing, and Darshan's like, oh, this is your research? This is incredible. Absolutely, we need to figure out why this was stolen. So they look over the blueprints. He pointed out how there was like some spare rooms that shouldn't have anything in it, but have stuff in it, so that's probably where it's all being held at. And Selena's like, okay, this is why I was called. You want me to help you break in there? And it's just like, yeah, absolutely. So I basically say, we have all the tools, but we could use a lookout. And Darshan's like, I really don't want to be a part of this, but I mean, if you're asking. So he helps as a lookout. We see that they're on a hillside opposite of the botanical gardens. And as they're watching the wing that should be fully abandoned, they see some lights turn on, and Catwoman looks around just like, yeah, no, there's crazy security on this stuff, like a lot more than we would have expected. I'm not sure how we're going to get in there. To which Darshan just starts running down the hill over to the building, and he opens up a grate that has some steam tunnels that are old and out of service, and he signals for them to come on down. She's like, how did you know about this? And it's like, oh, yeah, every building from the 19th century used to have these, and they're completely out of service now. I've been studying the blueprints. And Catwoman's like, he's kind of cute. You going to do anything with that? And she's like, I'm not going to use my pheromones, if that's what you're asking. I'm going to do this naturally, and also shut up. So eventually they reach a locked door, and that's where Catwoman's like, okay, this is my time to shine, and starts putting in the stuff to do it. All of a sudden, Ivy hears a voice through the green calling out for help. And she's like, oh, hey, we should probably check on that. Something's going on there. All of a sudden, a bunch of scientists start just sprinting down the halls, just absolutely terrified of something. And a door that was behind them, the one they just opened, slams shut. So like, well, we're stuck in here, so what are we going to do? And Ivy just keeps trucking down, searching out for the voice in the green. And Catwoman explains the green to Darshan because he's completely unaware. So it's like, oh, can you hear me? Where are you? And the voice is like, oh, there were bad men. They tried to hurt me. I got out. And we see them come across a scientist in the hallway who has been brutally murdered, and in his hands is a gun, but more importantly, his hands have been turned to solid wood. And Catwoman's like, okay, what could do this to a human being? And then through security cameras, we see a shadowy figure is watching. It's not the same voice bubble as the Green, it's someone else, but it recognizes Isley and is just like, oh, so close, and where are the children? So they make their way into a computer lab room. They see a whole bunch of screens that have all the blueprints and stuff like that, and also her research, along with their files from HR. So it's like, yep, they've been studying us. They've been looking into us all this time. It must be Victor. He's such a dick. So as they look in, it's like, oh, I don't know. It's like, he never liked Louisa, but he was close to Grimley for all those years. I don't understand why he would have killed him. And then Catwoman's like, hey, by the way, there's another sealed door over here. I think whatever we need should be behind this door. And he's like, oh man, this is super high end. I don't think you can hack into that. And Catwoman's like, time me. I'll be less than a minute. And then 58 seconds pass. She's in through the door. And when they get in on the other side, they find more scientists who have been brutally murdered and parts of their bodies have been turned into wood, along with a medical table where the belts on it have clearly been snapped. And so whoever was on the table definitely got out. So we hear a voice through a door. It's a refrigerated area. Ivy's still reaching out through the voice and saying, oh, I hated needles. I had to change the bad men to make them stop. As we open up the fridge, we see that on the other side is Victor. He was just shoved into this cold room, the fridge. And he's fine. He's alive. He's not the voice in the Green. And Ivy just chews him out, just being like, oh, you broke into my home. You threatened my sporelings. You did all this stuff. And he was like, oh, you think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you've just unleashed. And as they make their way deeper into the room, they find a air vent. And hiding inside the air vent is another sporeling. It's a little girl. And she's hiding in there. And Ivy recognizes this is the girl from the Green. And she comforts her, says like, hey, I'm Poison Ivy. The bad men will never bother you again. You're okay. And as she looks around the room a bit closer, she sees all these jars on the walls with what appear to be fetuses, all of these cages that have slightly aged up sporelings, but all of them are dead. And she's like, so many failures. It took them so many tries with my research to get even one success. This is so much disregard for life, both human and plant. I'll burn it to the ground. And so she starts just cracking all the fetus things, breaking the cages open. She goes over to Victor, starts strangling him with vines. I think she straight up kills him because there's a big crack of the neck there. And she's like, no, this lab is a rotten institution. It all has to come down. So she starts bringing in roots, bringing in plants to tear through the walls. Catwoman's like, yeah, you need to talk her down before she kills all of us. And Darshan comes up and is like, I appreciate the hostility of the moment, but we should at least get that little girl to safety, right? That's important. And Poison Ivy's like, fine. So she continues to bring the place down to the ground. That doesn't stop, but she leaves just enough time for them all to get out. And so we see that they escape with her research, their files, the girl, and the entire research facility is destroyed by Poison Ivy. So where do we go from here? I don't know. Looks like the next issue has a bunch more plant creatures on it, so I'd imagine Rose and Hazel and this other random girl will be of focuses. No, I mean it's a fine issue. It flew by in a flash. I really didn't have that much to say about it. Looks great. Yeah, it's the next part of the story, I guess, is the only thing that I have to say. It's still building up the mystery of who or what is behind all this here and what the big threat is. If I had to guess, I'd just say Jason Woodrue, just because it's a Poison Ivy story. I'm pretty sure you're legally contracted to always have Jason Woodrue show up in a negative light at some point. But beyond that, it's well done. I don't have anything really negative to say about it. So I'll give it a 7.5. It's almost at the 8 for me, but I think the only thing that's keeping it there is how fast it did go by. It's such a quick read. It's so much of it just like boom, done. So yeah, no, it's solid, just not amazingly solid. So yeah, 7.5. The Flash number 50, written by Jensen, art by Jesús Merino and Paulo Pelletier. So, last issue, we got the big thing of Flash was tricked by Trickster and got himself arrested by the Rogues, working on behalf of the CCPD, Central City, whatever. So, we see that, as the Rogues are saying, all right, Flash, you're under arrest, immediately Fry steps up. He's like, you're just temporary police, you're not actually real, we're going to arrest him officially now. And it's like, whatever, as long as we get paid. As he's being perp walked out, immediately he's just like, all right, you have the right to remain silent, blah, 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 blah. And as he looks over at Flash, making sure he knows his rights, Flash is just like depressed. And he's like, I heard the question, but man, we're on the same side. What are you doing? I never thought I would need an attorney. What's up going on with you? And then I think it's Trickster reaches over and is just like, all right, time to find out who he really is. Let's take off his mask. It's Mirror Master. And immediately Fry's is like, no. We're going to treat him with some level of dignity and respect. We're going to take him into the prisoner intake at Iron Heights, and then we'll find out. And Iris West has shown up and just like, excuse me, Captain Fry, a word. And he's like, all right, what do you want? She's like, I just wanted to, what the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, Flash is a danger. I don't take any joy in this. You can quote me on that. So we see Wally runs out, meets up with Iris, and just like, hey, they just arrested the Flash. So that's a thing. And we see that the like drone flew overhead or whatever. And just like, oh yeah, like those drones were programmed in to send Speed Force energy. And Iris is like, okay, but why would they show up in your classroom? And Wally's like, So we cut back over to Barry's dad, who's out fishing. He's just listening to the news or a sports game or something like that. And then all of a sudden there's an interruption. And he's like, the Flash has been arrested. We've just gotten word. He's been arrested at a middle school and all this. And immediately Barry's dad is up on the phone saying, hey, it's me. You owe me one. Let's get to work. So we cut over to Trickster, who makes his way down into like the warehouse district, and we see he talks to this shadowy figure again, and it's just like, oh, hey, the trick arm did the trick. I really love it. What you got against Flash anyway, though? Like, you really must hate the guy. He's like, what? No, I'm fascinated by him, but him being in jail is not the end game to my master plan here. And the mysterious figure pushes a big red button, and we see, as we saw in a previous issue, Heatwave is inside a giant test tube. And Trickster sees this and it's like, what? Heatwave? I thought he died during Forever Evil. And it's just like, nope, he didn't. And now I have him. And he's like, well, let him out. He's one of the rogues. It's just like, Heatwave is my insurance policy. In case everything goes up here, I am going to use Heatwave. Also, I put a bomb in your current arm. Your old arm, I just replaced it now. Now there's a bomb. I'll blow it up if you don't listen to me here. So don't worry, he'll eventually be set free once I have everything I want. And Trickster's like, what's that? And he's like, oh, an empire, my boy. I'm setting up an empire. So we go to Iron Heights, and we see that one of the guards passes by the cell of Girder, and is like, hey, Girder, why don't you step on out? Like, you've been on good behavior. I want to, you've got a visitor or something like that. And as he steps out of the cell, immediately he's like, all right, I got a message for you, Girder. The good doctor needs some help. So they go way deep under Iron Heights, where apparently there were whispers of this area that are just completely and utterly roped off from the rest of the world. All these inmates here. And as they come down, Girder's like, all right, we got to get this guy out. And he's like, are you sure? He's got like radiation shielding. Are you sure we should be letting him out? It's like, this is the only one that's going to be able to help with what the doctor wants. And we see that inside is Overload, aka the dude who was introduced like 10 issues ago, who hates the modern world's electricity, and it causes this buzzing in his ears that like he hates it, and he's able to absorb all the energy. So Girder's like, all right, look, we'll make sure you never hear the buzzing, but we got to go drop in on the Flash. So we see Flash is brought to Iron Heights. He's being brought in, and immediately Captain Fry goes to the guy who's like in charge of Iron Heights, and it's just like, are you sure you can handle the Flash? Like, I don't want him getting away. Are you equipped to hold him? And it's just like, yep, we've got Eobard Thawne downstairs. He got the same power set, speedster, all that. Dr. Elias set up all the tech. We're good. We can keep him down here. No one's going to lay a finger on the Flash. And then Girder busts through the wall and goes, Flash! So Immediately, guards try to shoot him. It doesn't have much of an effect on Girder. Girder's like, all right, Overload, your turn, step in. And as he steps in, he's like, oh, my head, the buzzing. And as he steps forward, he drains all of the electrical energy out of the Trickster's arm that was depowering the Flash. So now he's free, he's good to go. And Flash is like, wait a minute, hold on, you're not trying to kill me? And just like, nope, you got friends on the inside. Now get out of here. All of the guards try to shoot Overload because obviously he's the bigger threat here. Overload's just like, shut up, I don't, too much. And because they've all got like taser guns. So he absorbs all their energy, which then makes him more upset by the amount of energy in the room. And he starts draining it from the entirety of Iron Heights, which if the electrical system goes down, so does all the cell locks. So all of the inmates start making their way out. And there's a giant explosion in the side of Iron Heights. Fry, he's recoiling, thinks he's about to get hit by it, but we see Barry got him out at the last second, brought him away, and he's like, but I was gonna arrest you. Why would you be nice to me? And he's like, because that's literally what I do. That's all I've ever done. Anyway, there's still some guards in there. I gotta get ready to deal with this because all hell's about to break loose. He's like, oh, what about you? And it's like, oh, what about me? So he runs in, he meets up with Girder, and he's like, Girder, you gotta help me. We gotta take down Overload. What were you thinking getting Overload out anyway? He's like, I needed a guy who was gonna be able to get you out of your stuff. Overload seemed like the obvious option. I didn't think he would go mass murdery and all that stuff. And he's like, well, you gotta help me out. He's like, no, that's not really my thing. I'm out, bye. And he just walks away. Overload goes back down into his cell, actually, because it's quiet down there, and he just puts himself back in there voluntarily. Passing by Eobard Thawne, who's like, son of a bitch, let me out of here. He's like, no, I'm going to bed. So we get up to the top level. We see there's some guards. They don't have any of the guns because all of it's electricalized and whatnot. And then there's a bunch of, I'm just going to say Z-listers. Like, I'm sure they are threats to some extent, but like this one guy has playing cards on his body and he throws them and it literally tears his skin off. Yep. So Flash comes in and he just starts saving all the guards, bringing them all off the island. He's like, all right, all of them are taken care of. Time to go handle the rest of the villains. And we cut over to the shadowy figure who's got a chessboard and he's like, well, that was underwhelming. I thought for sure Flash would take more to take down than just a single week. It's whatever. But as he's putting away the chessboard, we see all of a sudden the big warning of, oh, nope, turns out that that's actually something unexpected happening and that they busted out. So gonna have to do plan B. And he turns over to Heatwave and says, yep, you're my little reset button. So Flash sees a drone flying overhead. He's like, hey, anybody from police station watching this drone feed, we need help at Iron Heights ASAP. Send everyone down. And immediately the rogues show up. One of them hits Barry, or I say one of them, Captain Cold hits Barry with an ice gun. And he's like, dude, if you're working with the police, you got to help me out here. Them's the rules. And they're like, we're working with the police on the one very specific thing of capturing you. We don't give a damn what's happening over on Iron Heights. So Mirror Master opens a portal, drops him through the mirror dimension, sends him out the other side, falling off the side of a building. And he's like, whatever, no problem. I can just use my vortexes. To which Golden Glider shows up and says, nah. And then she doesn't do anything else. And then Weather Wizard makes a tornado that slams Flash into the side of another building. So now that he's out of it, he's a little bit injured. It seems like he messed up his shoulder. Trickster shows up and is just like, well, my new arm doesn't do the Flash capturing stuff, so we'll have to do something else. But then the drones start swarming around. And they're like, I believe I can help. And they're like, what? You're drones. What can you possibly do? And they start combining together Megazord style with the voice coming out of it saying, who are you calling a robot? And as they come out, just like, yes, you see, I was not only the one who contacted you to be hired for the CCPD, I was also the one who made the drones. I sold them to the CCPD. All of this has been my plan to begin with. And we see that he uses the Megazord Gatling gun from these drones to start shooting at all of the different rogues. It doesn't seem like it's deadly, but they do start taking them down. Golden Glider tries to fly in, and Trickster is like, oh geez, he promised to teach me some new tricks so I could be a better rogue. I didn't think he'd be doing this. And I don't know if his arm like does this on his own or if he does it, but it unleashes a blast that manages to take out Golden Glider. So as Barry's limping away, the robots are like, oh, I've watched you for a long time, Flash. I couldn't help but wonder if it was possible to stop you. You see, I love a good riddle. And then Flash is like, oh, who are you? Who could you be? And we see as the drones aim at a nearby building with a bunch of glass windows, they start shooting out windows in the shape of a question mark. And then Riddler shows up. We're not done. So that's it for the main story. We then cut over to a backup story, which I still believe is Van Jensen and one of the artists. This one's following Wally West and gym class later that day. And we see Wally is playing dodgeball. He's dodging around talking to his friend, and they're just like, oh, yeah, it was crazy. Flash got arrested. And it's like, yo, Flash didn't get, like, cause the damage in the school, though. It was all the rogues. And it's like, well, Flash is a criminal because everywhere he shows up, bad things happen. To which Wally's like, Flash is a hero, god damn you. And as he's distracted, he's about to take a dodgeball to the face, but then in like a split second manages to catch it. And everyone's like, oh my god, those, wow, great reflexes. So the guy who threw it gets out as per rules of dodgeball, and he's like, I think I need to go to the nurse. I'm not feeling so good. And the gym coach is like, all right, whatever, get out of here. He makes his way back into the locker room to get changed, and then all of a sudden his hands start shaking, vibrating like before, and he's like, oh no, not again. And then I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what specifically is happening here. We see a vision, theoretically, of him getting his powers in this big thing, and the voice starts talking, saying like, oh, you were chosen by the lightning. And then out of that vision comes future Wally West from the other arc where he went back in time. And he's like, no time to explain, but I'm going to explain. I'm you from another timeline. I got the Flash's powers. I'm a speedster like him. I died, but when I died, I controlled my energy to be imbued into you, so you also have the powers now. And Wally's like, all right, I'm just going to recap that real quick. Future me died, went through time and space, and gave me my own powers. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. He's like, dude, don't even get me started on the Speed Force. So he's like, all right, well, if you're from the future, what happened to Mom? He's like, I can't tell you that, but I do know, and you'll know someday too. He's like, all right, so I have Flash's powers. What's going to happen to me? He's like, one day you're going to be able to control it. Just work on it. The rest is up to you. Goodbye, Wally. And then he sprints off. The rest of the class comes in, and they're like, oh, hey, man, I thought you were going to the nurse. He's like, I'm feeling better now. He's like, all right, whatever. And the guy who like threw the balls, like, you know, you got lucky, but you should be on my team next time if you got speedy powers like that. And he's like, what do you mean speedy powers? I don't know what you're talking about. And then they start talking about the Flash and saying like, oh yeah, what would you do with Flash's powers? And the big guy who threw the ball is like, man, I would use those powers to like rob banks, and I would pants the coach in front of the school, and I'd steal the answer key to all the stuff, and I'd go in and out of that girls' locker room constantly. Like, man, I'd be going crazy with the powers. And this one nerdy kid steps up and is just like, well, actually, Dr. Ray Palmer published a paper that said the Flash might have the ability to break through the very fabric of space and time. And the boy's like, who told you you could talk? You say one more nerdy goddamn thing again, I'm going to beat the ever-loving piss out of you. And so he's like rolling back a punch, and he's about to punch this kid, and everything stops. And Molly's like, what's going? Oh, I'm moving at super speed. Okay. And he's like, I could do anything. And he starts getting glimpses of things he would do. All of them heroic, all of them good. But he's like, well, I guess I should start here. And he gets in front of the kid's punch. He moves the kid out of the way and puts a bar of soap underneath the bully's foot. And so the bully throws the punch, immediately slips on the soap, goes falling, and he's like, oh, who pushed me? Who's going on? What, all that stuff? And everyone's laughing at him. And then Wally's friend looks at him and is just like, so what about you? If you had the Flash's powers, what would you do? And he's like, you know, I think I'll just focus on being Wally. That's the issue. All right, so for the A part, it's fine. I mean, Riddler. Do I think that's a good fit for a Flash villain? No, but also you could have picked worse. If you're going to steal from someone else's rogues gallery, like, I don't think the Penguin would be a good fit. I don't think that, like, Ra's al Ghul would be a good fit. If you're going to do someone, Detective Barry Allen, or I don't think he's forensic right now, but you know what I'm saying, versus the Riddler. I think that's going to be one of the better fits. However, it doesn't feel like we're doing anything where like he has to deduce anything. So maybe we'll get something like that. But for this, it just feels like, hey, we need another person to like be in the story, and we don't want to reuse someone we already had. So Riddler. Beyond that, I mean, the Wally backup story's fine. I like the way it's drawn. It's more cartoony style, and it works for what it is. Uh, yeah, it's just an okay issue. It just feels okay across the board. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just, yeah, that's the next part. That's what we're doing. I will say the girder stuff and breaking out Overload, clever, does it well, makes it so it's not like, yet another full scale, like, oh no, the villains they're doing this stuff. It's like, no, Girder owed a favor to someone else, and like, this is just a horrible way to try to pay it back. So I'll say 7. It's good, it's okay, it's just not doing anything amazing for me. And honestly, the Riddler reveal felt weak in comparison to everything else going on. So 7. Superman, Lois and Clark, number 7, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Lee Weeks and Steven Segovia. So last issue we had the big reveal as John and Lois were stuck in a burning shack that John seemingly has superpowers as well. So we open up several years prior. Lois is bringing in some groceries, and we see John's playing with some action figures of Superman and Flash, and he's like, Mommy, who would win in a race between Flash and Superman? And Lois is like, I'm pretty sure Superman would, because, like, Superman wins everything. And John's like, that's not fair. Superman has, like, all these other powers, and Flash's only thing is that he can run fast. I'm pretty sure Flash should win that fight, since it's his only thing. But as they enter inside, we see Clark has sent up a whole congratulations thing, some champagne for Lois. And he's like, hey, John, go to the fridge, go get yourself some root beer. And turns out that her first book under the pseudonym of Author X has been published, something about Wall Street and whatever else there. And she's like, oh, man, this feels really good. I'm so happy to have this here. And he's, a little bit apologetic, just like, yeah, I know you should deserve a much bigger party, but because you want to be anonymous and all that stuff. She's like, no, this is exactly what I want. This is totally my life and like everything I want about it. And we do see that Lois is like, hey, he's, getting into Superman, stuff like that. A, do you think we should tell him? And B, do you think he might also have that potential? And Clark's like, I don't know. Like, I wish that we could take him to an expert one day, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Cut to today, John's still reaching through the fires, and Lois is like, John, stop, you're going to hurt yourself. He's like, no, I don't even feel anything. It's all good. And so he pulls off the door, just like tosses it away without even so much of a thought. And when he's outside, he's like, I'm good, I'm fine, but I really don't understand how, Mom. And as they're standing out there, a bunch of the inner gang people see them, and she's like, we'll talk later, let's get going. So we go over to the bridge that was being destroyed by, I don't know, whatever the hell his name was, the guy who thought he was doing it for TV. And we see that BlackRock, there it is, he's choking out Superman. He's just like, oh, you're not Superman, you're not anything that look like him. And he's like, it doesn't matter who I am, I'm here to stop you. And he starts throwing punches at BlackRock, and he's like literally punching off his armor. He's like, oh, you think that armor makes you strong? It makes you weak underneath because you rely on it. And he just starts tearing it apart. And immediately, as soon as he's put on the bag of the ropes, as soon as it starts hurting a little bit, he's like, hey man, I just did what they told me to do. It's all part of the entertainment factor. And he points down to like where the truck is and all that. And Superman's like, you did this for reality television? And the TV cameras are like trying to get a zoom in, trying to see like, is that Superman choking out our dude? This is going to be the best pilot episode of all time. And he basically is like, so let me get this straight. You agreed to kill people for a show that's just meant to exist to run more ad spots. And he's like, no, we weren't supposed to kill anybody. They told me that the bridge was cleared, that there wasn't anybody on board. And he's just like, oh my god, you people are unbelievable. And he throws BlackRock down into the river, melts the TV crew's camera and their truck, and then flies away. He's like, this was the dumbest subplot of all time. I hated every moment of this, but I've been hearing Lois and John. I need to go get to them now. So we then cut over to the island that Hank Henshaw's on, and Weird Space Lady shows up saying, hey, where is it? You better give it to me now. I'm hiatus. Give me what I need. And the one guy pulls out a gun, tries to shoot her. She just breaks his wrist with her foot. Henshaw tries to get up and run, and she grabs hold of him with control over vines, and she's like, oh, I know you. Well, I don't know you, but like, I can sense in your mind it's not open. You have what I want. And he opens up his hand and he reveals the Oblivion Stone, to which she says, "That's not the whole Oblivion Stone. That's like half of it. Where's the other half? What'd you do with it?" So then we go back over to Lois and John. Intergang caught up. They've got them held at gunpoint. Lois covers John's eyes and just like, "Please do whatever you want to me, but not my son. He's innocent in this." And they're like, "We don't care." And they start firing shots. But before the bullets can hit them, Superman swoops in, grabs them both. The fire apparently spread to some gasoline that was inside the shed. It explodes and seemingly kills all the Intergang members. So Clark rushes John and Lois back to their homestead, does it fast enough that there's no way anyone could trace them. And he's like, "Yeah, it's hard to breathe at these speeds, but trust me, it'll be over soon." And as they get there, they land. And John is immediately like, "You guys have not been telling me the truth. There are guys with guns trying to kill us, and you're what, some kind of Superman?" And they're like, "Honey, we understand you're upset." And he's like, "Yeah, you've been lying to me my whole life." And Clark's like, "Look, there's a lot you need to know here, son." And Lois is like, "Hey, man, just to be clear, he doesn't know specifically because you're Superman. He also knows because he just reached through a fire and grabbed a flaming door and like tore it off his hinges." And Clark's like, "Oh my God, I got a Superboy." And he's just like, "Yeah, totally." So at that point, he walks over to John. John's like crying a little bit. He's like, "Are you really Superman?" And Dad's like, "It's complicated." And he's like, "Oh, of course. You can't just tell me the truth." And they're like, No. We'll tell you everything. We'll tell all of it to you. But like, it's very complicated." And they basically just break it down saying, "This is not our home universe. We originally came from a different timeline, and now we're in this one. And that's the easiest way I can explain it to you. This is where our home is now." And we see that he's, saying how they have to work secretly and all this stuff. And that's why there's another Superman and another Lois Lane and all this other stuff. And they're like, "Okay, well, why did you lie? Why didn't you tell me the truth?" And he's like, "Oh, we didn't want anyone to know about this. Not even your mom's job. Only your publisher knew about that. But yeah, a bunch of stuff got out." And John's like, "Well, I could have done stuff too." And it's just like, "We didn't know you could do that. This is a shock to all of us." So as Clark's trying to calm his son down, do whatever, he starts getting this headache. He gets visions. It looks like it's related to, I literally just said her name, Hyethus, and stuff going on with the Oblivion Stone. And when he comes to it, he's like, "Hey, I'm fine. I'm cool, but like something crazy's going on. I need to go figure out what's up. We'll talk later, boy." And he flies off. And John just looks up and he's like, "That is so cool." And Lois is like, "Yeah, every time. It's so cool." So we go over to Henshaw, who's still being choked out by Hyethus. She's got the Oblivion Stone. And just like, "Look, I should kill you now, but I need this, the other half, so you're the only link I have to where the rest of it could be." And as she's saying like, "Oh, your power is at a fraction of what it should be, but I will find the other half," we zoom in on the stone, and when we zoom back out, we see that the other half is, of course, in the Fortress of Solitude. So probably where the final fight's going to be. I don't know. Okay, so positives. I think the art in this is fantastic. The page showing like John's hand reaching through the fire, absolutely wonderful, like a beautiful image. My only thing, and this is maybe just a byproduct of they didn't know how long the series was going to be. They didn't know how long they had to rebirth or like where they wanted to end this. I feel like we should have gone without the Hyethus stuff. And the reason I say that is not because I don't care about the Oblivion Stone. I think that's probably a fine enough arc. Like, we're just building up to it being a MacGuffin. Fine, whatever. My thing is, I wanted this issue to be he finds out and we wrap up the Intergang stuff. We get to like a stopping point there, or at least close to a stopping point. And then the final issue can just be the talk. It can just be the let's sit down and John like learns everything and like we take that next step forward. We do this next big thing. Maybe that will be a large part of the next issue, but it feels to me like because we've been teasing this Hyethus stuff this whole time, all of next issue is going to have to be, well, we got to wrap that up. So I don't know. I'm not let down by the issue itself. I'm let down by the fact that it doesn't feel like there's enough time to do the cool stuff that's been set up. I much would rather this idea of Lois and Clark, as is the namesake, sitting down and talking to their son and like getting the Superman stuff out in the air. But That's just not what we're doing. So collectively, I think I'm going to say that this one is it'll creep up to the 7.5. I think the art at least gets it up to that point, but if it's just on the writing, it's probably down to a 7. But it's a comic. We take both of those. So yeah, we'll see if the final issue can really do something special with that. But it does feel like it's basically just going to be Hiathus punching a bunch of stuff. Woo. Wonder Woman number 51, written by Meredith, Finch, art by Miguel Mendonça. So last issue, I believe that most all of it was basically just devoted to the idea of Wonder Woman going out to try to save the monsters on Hecate's demands, and she finds out that a lot of people in Olympus are just kind of dicks. So this issue picks up in the Tartarus Pit. We're looking for the final one, which is, to be fair, I cannot remember. It's like the Hecatonis or something like that. And she basically reflects on the idea of like, okay, yeah, the last time I went through Tartarus, it was with Slade Wilson over in the Deathstroke book. It was a whole thing there. And the whole thing of the Tartarus Pit is that it's messed up. Like it tries to be a place of torture. And so I need to keep my wits about me. And as she goes through, she sees all these damn souls down here. And she's like, how many of these souls are actually like damned for a good reason? How many of them are just people who pissed off the gods? Because like, again, I have just recently seen how petty and stupid the gods are when it comes to stuff like this. So what am I going to see while I'm down here? And as she's thinking that, she's like, I need to find there it is, the Hecatoncturies. Sure. And get them back to Olympus so that Hecate can save Zeke. That's the plan here. But as she's making her way through, she's like, oh, I have to hurry up or else I'll be too late. I can't lose Zeke. And then she hears a voice from the side that says, oh, it took you so long, Diana. And we see it's a zombified Zola holding a dead baby Zeke. And just like, we waited and you never came. And Wonder Woman's like, this isn't real. This is just the pit. But by God, is it upsetting? And she's like, look, you broke your promise. Zeke is dead. We let you into our hearts. And look what you did to my baby. You killed my baby. And she's just like, oh, God, I'm out of here. I got to go. This is messed up. So she makes her way out a door, goes into another one. She sees that there are 2 young Amazonian girls fighting, and then a young Diana comes up saying, hey guys, I got a sword too. I can fight and be a real Amazon warrior like you. And they scoff and say, you need hands to be able to hold a sword. And as she looks down, her hands are turning to clay and they are melting away. And it's just like, ha ha ha, get home, Clay, and ask your mommy to make you a new pair of hands. Or how about she makes you some friends while she's at it. And Diana tries to come in and like tell the girl shut up, but they're visions, they're projections, they're not real. And she starts getting a bit upset. She's like, oh mother, if only you knew what your lies were doing to me. You thought it was to save me, but look at all the hurt it caused. And then she turns around, and who's standing there but Superman, who says, hey babe, been a while. We're glad you're home. And he's laid out this dinner like buffet for her and like wine and all this stuff, being like, oh, it was worth the wait. And she's like, nope, this part definitely isn't happening. And he's just like, no. And she tries to leave. And he's like, no, please don't leave. Please don't leave. As long as we have each other, you don't need to protect me. I've got my powers back. And plus, I can give you the family you always wanted. And I swear to God, it's out of someone's kink book. Wonder Woman has this massive pregnant belly, and she looks down and she's like, oh my God. And she says, no, I gave up on having a family after I joined the League. Like, it was too much. But then when I was with Clark, I was thinking about it. And she's like, yes, Diana, we can have that family. All your dreams are going to come true. And she's like, no, this is messed up. I don't like this. And she, of course, realizes that it's the Tartarus Pit. She pulls away, and Clark is like, you never really believed in us. Why didn't you believe in me? And she's like, I'm sorry, Clark. Oh, God. And as she walks into the next room, it's literally just the kitchen. Like, it's not even a new area. And standing in the kitchen is Hera, who's like, God, that was uncomfortable. And as soon as Wonder Woman sees her, she's like, okay, what is this all about? And Hera just chews her out, just like, what have you done? And he's like, all right, Hera, look, I understand. You're going to tell me that, like, oh, I'm stealing from you and all that stuff. And she's like, nope, enough. And she blasts Wonder Woman. And she's like, I know exactly what you did. You're trying to steal my power while I was distracted by Zeke's illness. That's what it is. And she just starts, like, laying a smackdown on Wonder Woman. And it's like, what, you want to be God of War and the head of Olympus too? Like, all this stuff? And Wonder Woman's like, okay, I know this is a Tartarus pit thing, but like, it really hurts. It's actually, this is more of a physical thing than a psychological thing. And so she starts wrestling with Hera and just like, oh, looks like I'm going to have to kill another bastard child of my treacherous husband, Zeus. And as she like flips Hera over, they continue to fight. And Hera comes up and it's just like, oh, you always do what you believe is right with no consideration of the consequences. You're just like your father. You're a liar and a cheat. You deceive and betray. And Hera starts like tearing up a little bit, doing a crying thing. And one of them's like, you're just a trick. None of this is real. You're just in my mind. And she's like, no, I'm real. I wish this was a Tartarus thing, but like, you messed up. You are guilty of handing my power over to some monster. You've given Hecate the ability to trap us both in the Tartarus pit forever. And one of them's like, wait, what? I'm sorry. I was desperate. I had to save Zeke. I should have known better. You got to forgive me. And she realizes in that moment, like, oh, God, well, this is the real Hera. Wait, what? This isn't a Tartarus pit thing. And I don't know how she realizes that, but she does. And they come to an understanding briefly. They're just like, okay, this is actually it. And it's like, oh, you used your greatest strength, your heart, against all of us. And she puts forward like, oh, yeah, well, if you don't trust me, you can use your lasso because the lasso senses truth. And he's just like, no, you're cool. We're good. And she says like, look, I thought you were on... You said that the eye of the Cyclops, they're the source of your power, and just like, yeah, they're the source of my power on Olympus. The sorceress, she just told you some other thing about it, and yeah, look, we may have done some really, really shitty things when it came to the Titans. Like, we knew that they had immense power. They helped us take down and take over Olympus and all that stuff. We shouldn't have turned against them. That was our bad, but like, Hecate is worse. Hecate is so much worse. And she's like, okay, God, I really shouldn't have given her all that power then. Fair enough. And she's like, all right, look, Hecate used my love for Zeke and my family against me. So now I'm going to show her what that love feels like turned against her. And Hera's like, cool. We're still trapped in the Tartarus pit, though. Not sure how you want to deal with that. And she's like, this place is made up of lies and deception. And I got myself a lasso of truth. And so she wraps it around her own hand. Hera follows in her wake, and they both bust right out of the Tartarus pit. So Wonder Woman makes a beeline over to where Hecate was, inside of Gaia's temple or whatever. She's nowhere to be found, completely empty. And just like, oh, she must have used the Cyclops eyes to see exactly where I was and saw that I was coming after her. So time to go back to Olympus. I'll reconvene with Hera. But as they make it up to Olympus, everyone is in mourning. Hera is standing there crying, and Diana's like, what's going on? Oh my God, did Zeke die? Oh, Jesus Christ, did Zeke die? And Hera's like, no, you were too late. And we see Zola is lying dead in, I don't know, whatever you want to, that thing from Snow White where she's just like in a glass box. I don't know if that has a name, but that. Okay. Every once in a while, issues do this. And, like, I get it from a writing standpoint because it feels like such an easy way to do it. Of, I want to have an issue that examines my character's worries and flaws and stuff like that, but it's really hard to write them in naturally. So I'm just going to have an issue where all of them are literally thrown at them as visual representations. And like, fine, if you must. I'd rather have that than no character development, but it feels like such a cheat. And on top of that, as this issue opens up and says, we just did this in a Deathstroke issue like 6 months ago. And it was very much similar things. It was not much different. So, yeah, it just felt really unnecessary, a lot of this issue. And then the Hera stuff, like, I don't know. I'm still not buying it. It feels weird to me that Hera just showed up here in the middle of one of Diana's... Like, is that how the Tartarus Pit works? Why isn't Hera being tortured by all this? Why is she showing up in this weird house telenovela thing of Diana and Clark? I don't know. Something weird I think is still going on. But that's for next issue. For this one, a lot of the issues eaten up by a lot of stuff I don't care about. And then by the time we get out of there, it's just, I don't know, it feels like a waste of an issue if I'm being honest. So, yeah. And we never even did the Heka Naka Nukas. So, 7, if not lower. Honestly, I'm partial to a 6.5, but I do really like the art in some of the panels. When she realizes that Hera is quote unquote real, I think that panel looks great. There's a couple others throughout, so I'll bump it to the 7. But it's not, this run is not going out with a bang. It feels like it's going out with a whimper. Maybe the last issue can change my mind. Maybe it'll reshape my entire format on things here, but it feels weak. Martian Manhunter number 11, written by Rob Williams, art by Ben Oliver. So last issue, a lot of big stuff happened. It was more so the backstory of exactly what all went on, but then it ended the issue with Mr. Biscuits being killed by Maflack. So we open up this issue, we see, yeah, we're getting to the critical point. Mars is going to crash into Earth, all that crazy stuff here. And we're getting it from the viewpoint of Pearl, who is since been turned into a giant mech Martian city and is carrying a bunch of refugees and is trying to get to Earth. But we flash back a little bit earlier, 20 minutes earlier, where John is basically laying down the plan for Pearl and says, like, yeah, okay, here's what I want you to do. The Mars quakes are increasing and impact is imminent. We need to get all of these people up and out of this planet over to Earth. Right now, the portal is closed, so therefore we have to hope that the B team is doing what they can with the Child of Mars to open up the portal, but we got to be ready to go. And in order to do that, I need you to take over this mech and just fly it yourself. You need to basically do a Ghostbusters 2 with the Statue of Liberty. And she's like, that's insanity. And it's just like, yeah, but like, you got to do it. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So she starts to transform inside of that, and she talks about, like, I thought I was human for the longest time, yada yada yada, but now I'm something else. And so she transforms. She's now part of this giant mech, and they start flying up out into space. And John is saying, like, oh, the infection and control is complete, Pearl. The city is Pearl. Pearl is the city. And she's like, you're talking weird. And he's like, all right, whatever, let's go. Save the people of Two Words. So they start flying as fast as they can through space. We see it, they come up against Phobos, the Martian moon, which of course had a giant space laser come out of it in like issue 6. He's taking this as a good sign of like, well, hopefully we can use that as the portal as well for as long as everything's working out on the other side. Cut to Mr. Biscuit's dead body, showing that things are not working out on the other side. And Maflack is taunting Alicia, and I can never remember his name until it's written down, but the cop one, Wessel, I think it was, saying like, oh yeah, Mr. Biscuits, when he fought me in the plane before, he was saying how second on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. Check it out, a lifetime on the lips. And he just licks a cookie with his disgusting tongue and then crushes it. So Alicia tackles him, tries to choke him out. Immediately, Maflack just punches her away. The cave walls start caving in, burying Wessel underneath. He doesn't seem to be in a good spot. Maflack turns to the Mars child and just being like, well, we can be strong, we can get out of this, but you're going to open up a portal for me so I can go out and do it. We're going to make Mars great again. It's basically the overarching side stuff. And he turns to Alicia saying, and in order to do that, I'm going to need a sacrifice. So I'm not going to kill you now, Alicia. I'm going to wait until the ritual is complete. So Wessel's down. He's not doing so hot. We then cut down to Earth, where the magic creatures, beings, have seen that something crazy is going on, and nobody else seemingly has noticed. We got Zatanna, Constantine, Etrigan, Sargon the Sorceress, and the new Dr. Fate, Khalid. And he's just like, well, I would have hoped for more, says Constantine, but I'll take what I can get here. Let's go ahead and do a protection spell. And so they put up a giant barrier spell over Earth, just being like, this is the best we can do. Let's try to stop the planet. So we see that John and Pearl and their mechs are trying to fly directly beneath Phobos, where it looks like the portal beam is still ongoing, but it's not actually like transporting them through. It's just heat and laser, to which point John and his mech is trying to block the beam for Pearl's sake in order to make sure that the people inside of her are living and are fine. There's a bit here where it said that she could hear him telepathically screaming until he physically changed his brain to negate all pain receptors. So that's a thing. We then cut over, well, Pearl saying like, hey, we need this barrier open. Wessel, I don't know if you can hear me because we're all telepathically linked because we're all John Jones, but do your thing. Talk to the Mars child. Let's get this done with. And Wessel's like, I'm sorry, Pearl. Everything's gone tits up. We got nothing. And then all of a sudden, the hand of Mr. Biscuits pops up like a cartoon character. Like it's just flapping up and down like it's talking. And it says, you're not dead yet, Daryl. And Wessel's like, are you kidding me? Mr. Biscuits, are you still alive? He's like, nope, I am dead. D-E-A-D, dead. And I was stabbed in the heart and immediately died. It's like, okay, but your hand is talking to me. You're clearly alive. And he's like, nope, I'm dead and this is sad. And he's like, I swear to God, Biscuits. He's like, look, I'm dead. And like, oh, you don't get it. After everything you've seen and done, I'm not human. None of your human experiences have everything. I don't follow the same laws as humans. I am a Martian, and so are you. You are a shapeshifter. And we see Wessel, realizing that, manages to warp and stretch his body a la Space Jam and gets out from underneath the rocks. And he's like, oh man, I really thought I was human. And he's like, yeah, well, you aren't. So Wessel goes off. He's just like limping away. He's like, I'll go stop Matlack. I'll talk to the child. And Biscuit's hand is like, and if you can, please promise me that you will save Alicia. She was my friend. And he's like, I'll try. Goodbye, Mr. Biscuits. And Biscuit's like, goodbye, Daryl. This was fun. And then his hand falls down and he's, I guess, officially dead. So we cut over to Matlack, who's talking to the Mars child, and he's just like, all right, we're doing it. We're towards the core now. Transform in Mars into my glorious image. Do what we got to do. And if you need a living sacrifice, check it out. Alicia. And he's ready to kill Alicia. And then all of a sudden, a spear harpoon comes off frame. We see that it was Wessel. He's like, I may be a Martian, but I'm still a cop. And cops stop the bad guys. So a giant rumbling happens again. More cave in. It looks like it's about to crash over the Mars child. And we see, I believe, Alicia pushing the Mars child out of the way of the rocks. However, the rocks stop, and we see the Mars child is holding them up via telekinesis or something. And it's like, okay, so there is good here. There is good on the planet. You were willing to do a selfless sacrifice just to save me. You would give your life for others. Perhaps I was wrong. And we see big bolt of energy, whatever like that. The portal's finally open. And down on Earth, we see that the magic beings, their shield has cracked. There's nothing we can do. And Constantine's like, well, who wants to hit up the pub? So that's the issue. Next issue, final one. It's strange because as I talk about it, it doesn't feel like a lot really happened in this issue. This feels like, okay, all the heroes are at their lowest to open it up. There's not a lot we can do. And then they come back, they rally, and we're going to do one last final stand here. And from a writing perspective, that's solid. That's fine. It just feels like this issue doesn't do much of anything. Like, I know the rally is important. It's important to have that sort of like the turning of the tides, the light on the third day and all that. But like, this issue doesn't feel like it's doing the rally. It just feels like it's giving an extra moment for Mr. Biscuits, more so than anything else, to just be able to be like, yeah, you're a Martian. And he's like, oh, right, I am. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good issue. It's just, it's weird in the placement in that as it accomplishes its goal of what it needs to do from a writing standpoint, it doesn't feel like it's doing much of anything. 7.5, mainly for the Mr. Biscuits joke. I love the visual of just this blank, expressionless face, blood around his mouth, and then the hand just going like, you got it, Wessel. Hilarious. Love it. Yeah, 7.5. I'm all right with that. Titans Hunt number 7, written by Dan Abnett, art by Paulo Siqueira. So last issue, I mean, we got a bunch of stuff happening, but the big thing was that the Titans seemingly are under attack by a group called Diablo. That we'll get more involved into this issue. So we open up with Hawk, who is at the therapy center with Dove, Roy, Narc, and Lilith, as it is attacked by Diablo, or at least 2 of them, named, I think it's D-Daddy and Honey Bun, which they wear these sweaters with just giant red letters of DD and HB. It's insanity, but regardless, they're like, oh, hey, you know, we're here, what's up? And as they activate a weapon on their car, it looks like Omega beams come out and just blow up the rest of the facility. So Hawk and Dove are now on their asses, and we see one of them is able to transform their hand into a gun, seemingly ready to end the job. So we go back out to the woods where Donna Troy, Nightwing, and Garth all are, and they come across the Spire, the big tower building thing, and they're like, well, this thing is here, and does everyone else feel that like they're being pulled to it? And it's like, yeah, it's super familiar. So they start making their way up, and they're like, yeah, we've climbed these same steps before, but like, we were here when it was built. And they're like, who built it? And it's like, I think we did. This is crazy. I don't know what the hell's going on here. So Lilith, Roy, and Narc, I'm never going to get used to that name, are making their way through, trying to get out the back way. And Roy's just like, wait a minute, hold on. Who you seem to know the name Diablo, Lilith. You've been mentioning it a few times. How do you know them? And she's like, oh, because I called them. It's all my fault. And they was like, wait, what? What is going on here? And Narc is like, nah, screw this. I'm going to deal with this. So he turns around. He faces off with Honey Bun, and she's like, hey, you might think you stand a chance here, but you don't. And she just immediately picks up this massive hulking brute up by the throat, holds him up against the wall. We see Roy lands an arrow inside of her arm. With no problem whatsoever, she pulls it out and she reveals that she isn't just your average ordinary girl. She's a robot. And immediately she casts aside the human skin of this girl and turns into this murder bot that's like twice the size of Roy. And she's like, all right, fine, whatever. So they go running. Lilith explains a little bit about it. She's like, oh, it's a strike droid. It's experimental. It's got camouflage housing. That's why it looks like a girl. They also mention that this is one of Diablo's principal wetwork agents. I don't know if that's a common term, but I know that Wetworks was a team in the Wildstorm universe. So maybe this has to do with that. But regardless, Lilith says, yes, I hired them to help us against Mr. Twister. And Roy's continuously firing arrows, trying to get it to slow down. It won't because it's a giant-ass murder bot. But it says, yeah, I thought they would assist us in protecting us from Twister. Something must have changed. There must be some difference now. We then cut over to, I'm never going to remember, Karen, who is praying for her husband in the hospital chapel when she's approached by Mr. Richards, the guy who called in Diablo, and is just like, oh, I represent Diablo. We were brought in to deal with the Twister menace, but it got out of hand. This is plan B. And he's like, what, you're pointing a gun at me. What's going on? And he's like, look, there were 2 ways to stop Mr. Twister. 1, we block him while he's weak, and we save the lives of everyone who would use his pawns. Worst point, if he manages to start getting you guys and using you as pawns, then we got to destroy you pawns. And seems like B is actually happening now, so we got to do it. So he takes a shot at Karen. Karen, who has never had any powers up to this point, does a thing and moves out of the way, seemingly. And as she's coming to terms with this as well. He's like, you lied to me. And it takes another shot. And she uses some sort of energy blast to just punch him through a wall. Back over with Hawk. He's fighting against, I'm just going to call him Daddy. I hate it, but I'm going to do it. He's fighting against Daddy. And like as he's focused on Dove, Hawk just lands a punches him halfway across the street, manages to get Dove up so they can start flying away. He follows pursuit in his car, is talking to Honey Bun, who again, Honey Bun is a giant murderous robot at this point, saying like, all right, you do your thing, Daddy. I'm almost done here. So Honey Bun gets a handle on Roy, is about to like snap his head. The car with Daddy in it is chasing after Hawk and Dove, and it's just like, wait a minute, hold on. It's a car. It's a dude in a car. We should be able to handle this. And Dove stops, and the car manages to do like a perfect 90-degree turn to loop around the backside of Dove. And we see Daddy starts merging with his car and turns into a transformer, saying, oh, you've never tackled mech magic before. And then Hawk just flies through it and starts ripping it to shreds. And Dove was like, Jesus, man, are you good? So Honeybun loses connection to Daddy. She gets a little bit distracted. We see Lilith uses her telepathic abilities to just mind whammy Honeybun for a second. And Roy's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I've stunned it. Use your powers. And it's like, all right, or use your arrows. And so he shoots and punches at Honeybun until Narc manages to get up, sticks it in the back with a spear. So that's all dealt with. And Lilith gets up saying, like, we need to find Hawk and Dove and leave because they're going to keep on sending more agents. I'm sorry that all this has happened here, but if, you know, I was willing to call for Diablo. You can see how ruthless they are. That should tell you how bad of a threat Mr. Twister is. And they both are just like, well, how do we fight someone if we can't even remember them properly? Like, what are we supposed to do? And Lilith is like, look, I turned to them so that you guys would not remember what's going on there. But if they're seeking to kill us now, it means that we've already crossed that threshold. Now it's time that you guys do need to remember. And it's like, okay, but if we cross the threshold, wouldn't we already remember? Like, we're not doing anything. And Lilith is like, yeah, there's more than just us on the Titans. So we cut over to Dick, Donna, and Garth. They're up at the top of the tower. Up there is the grand organ with Duncan at the head of it. And just like, oh, no. You guys, you came to hear my song. And it's just like, yeah, no, hey, it's okay. It's like, you guys shouldn't have come. Run while you can. And before they can, Mr. Twister is standing behind them saying, no, Malcolm, they've come a long way, and I'm so happy to see them again. And that's the issue. It's fine. It's overall, I think it's actually a very good issue in that, you know, it moves the pieces ahead. It gets everybody basically on the same playing field. I'm sure next issue, it's not going to take very long for Roy and Lilith and them to show up to the fight with Twister. Like, all that stuff, I'm fine with. We're all on the same page now. Everyone knows Mr. Twister. We all know he's the threat. And Karen's got powers, all this stuff. My only thing, and this is going across so many books here as we are approaching Rebirth, is that we keep introducing these characters, these new villains, like in the 11th hour, like just as we're wrapping up the story, and we're expecting to be like boy, aren't they a major threat? And then like they have to, by virtue of the book ending, have to be dealt with immediately. The whole Wetworks thing here in Diablo and all that, I understand we set up this Mr. Richards character prior to this. That was fine. But the Daddy and Honeybun thing, it came out of nowhere at the end of the last issue. It barely resulted in anything here, and then they were automatically dealt with. I just feel like there was a better use for our time and our characters we've already dealt with at this point than doing that. Like, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just like saying craziness here, but I don't feel like it's that out of whack to say don't introduce a character right as you're about to end the story. So yeah, it's okay. It's not, for the most part, I like the issue. I think that it flows pretty naturally. I like the Karen reveal. Like, it does that all well. It just, every time we cut back to that other fight, I'm like, either they need to be a major threat or they need to not be here, and neither is true. So I'll say a 7. It's not an enthusiastic 7. I don't feel like it's that firmly planted there, but I do think it still is a good issue, and 7 marks the crossover into good. So take that for what you will. Robin, Son of Batman, number 11, written by Ray Fawkes, art by Raymond Bachs. So last issue, we got a whole thing on this new Luen Darga kid who's going to attack Gorilla City because he's trying to restore he's I think he's trying to restore the artifacts that Damian originally took in the Year of Blood, but then stopped from putting back because Luendarga was behind the whole thing. It's a confusing storyline. So we open up with the Justice League, who of course keeps an eye on the sky over Gorilla City, and they get an alert of like, hey, we got some crazy movement in Gorilla City, explosions and stuff like that. What's up? And it's Flash and Batman who are looking at this, and Flash is like, oh, there's also some sort of mammalian megafauna that's flying in from the east, and it doesn't seem to be connected to the other forces. And Batman's like, that's my son. This isn't a Justice League problem. This is a Bat Family thing. So yeah, I'll go deal with it. So we see Damian's flying in on Goliath, and it's all of Gorilla City fighting against these Luendarga guys. It's a mess. We, obviously see Damian coming in, trying to fight off the Luendarga and knocking them down. He basically explains the storyline saying, oh, they must have the Helm of Salivar, and they're trying to set it back in order to undo the work of the Year of Blood. So Goliath goes off clearing the field while Damian tries to lock in specifically on where the helm is supposed to be. Meanwhile, out in the jungle, we see Talia with her League of Assassins, who still have Maya captive, is like, oh, well, this is where your Luendarga fall and you will all be exterminated and all that. Maya's like, I'm not with them. I didn't tell them anything. I don't know why you think I'm in with them. And Talia just drags her along like, yeah, we'll see. So Maya ends up calling Talia the world's worst mother. And when Talia takes offense to that, she's like, no, my son is not messed up because of me. He's a beautiful, exceptional child destined to be a legend, and we should just snap your neck and leave you here to rot. To which point a voice off panel says, Talia, stop. So we cut to Surendarga, who's of course the little kid leader kid. And Goliath comes in and is already just knocking down walls, ready to go. Surendarga apparently has fire control powers, so he's like, oh, son of Al Ghul, I'll take you out in one blow. And he fire blasts out of his hand at Damian. Goliath comes in, swoops Damian up out of the flames. But Surin doesn't see that happen, so he assumes that he killed him. Damian takes care of some burns that Goliath got on his wings before he is immediately thrust back into the main part of the fight because of some stray laser blasts. As he manages to swoop his way up on top of the roof, he watches Surin go to where the Helm of Salivar is supposed to go. And some gorillas try to stop him, and he's like, yeah, check this out. Firepower, and just sets the gorillas on fire. Damian starts leaping over buildings, trying to get there as fast as possible. And as he finally catches up to Surendarga, one of the other Luen jump out of the shadows, grab hold of him, and just like, haha, now you will die. So inside of the gorilla temple, we see there's a bunch more guards in there ready to take shots, but they're all just immediately set on fire again, to which Surin's just like, oh, Jesus, like, you think they would learn after one or two. They just keep on trying this. It never works. So Damian's now surrounded by a bunch of the Darga guards, and he calls him out. He's just like, you do understand you're on a suicide plan, right? Like, when all of you succeed in this goal, he's just going to end you. He has no use for you. I'm the only hope you guys have to survive. And he fights his way through all the guards until he gets up to Surin again. It's just the two of them. And he's like, well, I'm happy that you weren't actually that easy to kill. You're as tough to kill as any other Al Ghul. I was a little disappointed with thinking it only took me 10 seconds to destroy you. So I am the heir to my father's destiny. I am Surendarga, blah, blah, blah. So they start fighting off with each other. Darga seemingly has some level of super strength because he manages to just lift Damian up by the ankle and like throw him into a stone pillar face first. As he's knocked out, we see a few more guards come in, and they are immediately met with a boot to the face presented by Batman, who also has Talia and Maya in tow. Damian gets up. He's like, oh, father, you're here. And immediately it's an all-out family fight. So Surin tries the fire blast again. Damian gets swooped out by Batman while Talia goes in for the kicks and the punches. However, for whatever reason, and I might be wrong on this one, Batman has the helm. He brought it along with him, and or it might have been in the hands of one of the guards earlier on. But regardless, he loses it. It ends up in the hand of Surin, who passes it off to another guard. And while Batman's like, hey, Damian, it's all right, I'm here, whatever. He's like, Batman, I knew you would never leave me, but like, where's the helmet? and we see that the helmet lands back onto the platform. Maya does a last-second thing to try to stop it, but it doesn't matter. And with the helmet back on the platform, all of a sudden, Surin gets a massive boost of power, and he's like, yes, we're at the threshold of victory. We will preside over and end all of life. And Talia starts chewing out Batman, like, you couldn't keep your hands on the helmet, all that stuff. And they continue bickering back and forth while Damian's caught in the middle of the fight. He's trying to, like, take out Surin Darga. And he calls him out for it. He's like, stop your bickering. Don't let him get away. Like, it doesn't matter your opinions on me and, like, child rearing and whatever if we don't stop him. But as he's phasing with some sort of energy, it looks like he's about to teleport out. Maya jumps in on his back, grabs hold of him, and she teleports out as well. So she's gone now. Batman and Talia are still fighting against guards, and it's like, oh, hey, you just worry about your side, Talia. I'll take it here. And Damian takes it in for a second. He's like, my parents are fighting against other people instead of against themselves. This is fantastic. So as they continue fighting, Talia ends up falling into the arms of Batman just because of one of her acrobatic tricks. And Damian's like, oh, yeah, it's all coming together. Goliath comes in. He sniffs the spot where Maya disappeared. Turns out they took out all the guards somewhere in the middle here. And Damian's pissed off at Talia of like, why would you bring her here? She was happy. And Talia's like, she was a spy for the Luen Darga. To which Damian says, no, she wasn't. Where are you get? You're an idiot. How dare you, mother? So at that point, he's getting a little upset. Batman comes over like, hey, look, you're hurt. Let me have a look at you. And he's like, no, there's no time. If mother is right, we can still stop Surin, but we have to cooperate. So are you guys willing to work side by side, fighting with each other instead of fighting each other? And Talia looks at Batman and is like, well, to save the world, if only to save the world, fine, sure. So at that point, he's like, all right, I know where they're going. There's one last item that was missing from the vault. One more powerful one, the most powerful one that I was keeping from the Year of Blood. So we got to make sure that he doesn't make it there. And I knew he'd save it for last. I didn't even want to mention it because our last chance is going to be going to Dinosaur Island. So yeah, Dinosaur Island. I thought this was a 12-issue series. It's actually 13, so they do have 2 more issues to finish everything up, and I think that sounds right. That seems like a solid place where next issue we're probably going to get up to stopping him and be like right on the cusp of it, and then the last issue is just going to be mostly epilogue, and I'm good with that. That's absolutely how I want the structure to be. I think that how do I put this? The Darga plotline under Gleason was confusing. It was not very well put together, in my opinion. It was a lot of text at times. This one feels a bit more clear as to what's going on, but it's still so reliant on you knowing what happened in the earlier plotline that it's like, but wait, how does putting the object back grant power? It doesn't work unless you've gotten that earlier one. So I don't know. I think I still would have rather Ray Fawkes come in and do something wholly original, but I do also understand that if you only got like 5 issues to work with, you're just going to take what's already pre-set up and you're not going to worry about trying to set up a whole new thing. So it's an unwinnable battle, I guess, is there. So I'm going to say this one is, you know what, I'll give it a 7.5. It felt good. I think all the fight scenes of like Talia and Batman fighting together, that felt solid. The Gorilla City stuff, I mean, it was kind of just a backdrop. It didn't matter that there was gorillas. Could have used a little more of that, but 7.5 feels fair overall. Aquaman number 51, written by Dan Abnett, art by Vicente Cifuentes. So last issue we had the weirdly comedic issue, which focused on capturing the creature known as Deadwater, which turned out to just be a dude. This issue picks up with a guy inside of a ship, and I don't think it's initially super revealed here, but it's Scavenger. I'll also fully admit I don't know who Scavenger. I looked him up. Apparently he came at the tail end of Jeff Johns' run, but like I barely remember him. But they're treating him like a very big deal here, along with the rest of his crew. And it's like, okay, hey Aquaman, we've got a sense that he might be showing up here soon. Wipe all of our data. Don't let anything be recovered. We got to go nice and quiet here. So we got to 12 hours earlier, and we see that our guy, the one that we found before, he is being kept in a dehydrated state. He's got heat lamps on him. Like, he is immediately like, I'm so thirsty, please help me out. And Aquaman's like, I'm sorry, I got to keep you contained until I explain everything. What's your name? And he says, my name's Jonah Payne. Do you know how you got here? No, I don't even know what's going on here. But wait a minute, aren't you Aquaman? He's like, yes, I am. Do you know what Deadwater means? Which I find especially weird, because Deadwater was not a name he gave himself. It was given to him by other people in like news cycles and government agencies. So whatever. He explains, he's like, oh, it's when there's brackish water on top of salt water. It's this whole thing. Can we stop talking about water? I'm thirsty. He's like, all right, so you know about nautical stuff. Fair enough. You know what dead water means. Does it mean anything else to you? He's like, no. Why are you torturing me? He's like, Deadwater is a monster that killed a bunch of people, and you seem to be the one that transforms into Deadwater. And he's like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? And we see some human scientists and some Atlanteans and all that are watching on from a nearby room. And they're like, this is too much. This guy's going crazy. And Merc is there like, that's what we got to do. Keep everybody safe. We can't let him out there, especially since we're in the Atlantean, what's the word I'm looking for? The place where they're doing the diplomacy. So he comes out and he's just like, all right, look, you may have killed a bunch of people here. You caused the deaths of 13 people that we know of. Our Deadwater did, and we think that you're Deadwater. And they show like a picture of Deadwater. He's like, no way. There's no way that's me. And Aquaman asks, do you know how the transformations happen? Do you know any of this? And he's like, no, I don't know anything. I don't like, I'm so dehydrated right now. I'm so messed up. I feel like I'm dying. And Aquaman's like, hey, look, I'm sorry, but like, this is what we need to do this. And we see, Mira calls in saying, hey, Aquaman, the FBI is here. It's the agents from before. And immediately they're cracking jokes. And I just don't care that much. But they're like, yeah, we have this guy. His name's Jonah Payne. We don't like that we're putting him through this, okay? I want to make that clear. We're doing it because it's necessary, but like, we absolutely hate that we're torturing this guy. And so they do a little facial recognition on him. They filled in some blanks for some past data, and they find out that this guy is linked to he's linked to 12 of the 13 victims. And just like, okay, well, I need to get back in there and talk to him. Mayor's like, hold on, let me do it. I'll take care of it. And they're like, you've got to talk. You got to give upstairs. And she's like, I'll be brief. So goes in and just starts asking names like, who's Scott Hawks? And it's like, oh, that was an old college friend of mine. What about Kevin Vincens? And it's like, oh, we worked together a few years back. And as she goes through the names, she's like, all of these people, did you have a problem with them? He's just like, I mean, I had run-ins with them. I wasn't like their biggest fans, but like, it was all just small stuff. It wasn't anything huge. And Mayor's like, okay, that's something. They're all dead. You murdered them. And he's like, what? Oh, what? And he has no idea. He's whatever. The FBI agents apparently say that like, this is part of the psychological profile, that like, he had these itty bitty little small grudges. And when he turned into Deadwater, it turned them into psychotic murder like breakdowns. So at that point, he's like, look, things have been messed up for me. I don't have a job. I can't keep up with child support, but like, I didn't kill anybody. And then Mara says the name Elaine Ames, to which point he's like, oh, that's my ex. She changed her name back to her maiden name after we broke up, and realized that, yeah, the ex is the one who had the kids, the one he's supposed to be paying child support to. His kid's now essentially an orphan because he's here in prison and the mom is dead. And she's like, oh, I killed my wife. I did that. Oh my God. And he starts like breaking down, and he's trying to cry, but he literally cannot shed a tear because of how dehydrated it is. So she's like, okay, do you remember the last job you worked at? What was it in? And he's like, oh, I was working submersibles. I was working in salvage. And he's like, I need to know your employer. You got to tell me what's up. And he says his name was Peter Mortimer, to which point Aquaman's like, okay, that's Scavenger. We're going to go deal with Scavenger. So 12 hours pass. We see that they've investigated a bunch of places that they think Scavenger might be, until they finally hit this last spot where he just calls out, hey, Scavenger, you here? And then immediately a bunch of torpedoes start exploding around him. And then a bunch of people show up in like old school diving bell suits. And Aquaman just starts throwing punches, going crazy. And he's like, all right, I beat all your goons. Come on out, Scavenger. And then Scavenger does show up in I wouldn't say giant, but like 3 times the size of Aquaman mech suit. And he's like, oh, I'm right here. So we then cut over to Jonah Payne. He's inside his cell. They passed him some food, which is completely dehydrated food powder dust. And he's like, oh, just let me talk to my son. I want to talk to my son, please. And it's like, oh, sorry, we can't allow that. It's too much. And he gets so overwhelmed with emotion, he does manage to shed a tear, and immediately the transformation happens. He turns into dead water. Mara runs in, just being like, everyone get behind me. We can't let him reach the rest of the Spindrift station. It's all water out there. This is the only dry place. And so she throws a big punch trying to take out Deadwater, gets knocked back on her ass. And then back in the fight with Scavenger, we see Aquaman is also under the boot of this mech suit, and he is like, oh, I can take you down. I'm fully weaponized. I'm going to break you open like a crab claw. And says next issue is Deadwater versus Scavenger. So I don't know how we're going to angle that one, but we'll see. I mean, it's fine. It's a fine issue. The comedy was toned down significantly. We barely spent any time with those FBI agents, and all the better for it, because like if you try to get just imagine the parallels of like, I killed my ex-wife, the mother of my child, and then we cut to FBI agent being like, boy, Mara sure does look hot in there. I might actually throw my book. I mean, I'm getting angry over something that didn't happen, but I do want to be clear how off-kilter the humor was last issue. For this one, it's fine. It's an okay issue. It does feel like we're kind of rushing. We're sprinting towards the finish line because we set up this big thing of like, oh, there's this creature or whatever, and it needs to be wrapped up next issue, and it doesn't feel like it will be. So, that's a next issue problem. For this one, I'll just say a flat 7. It wasn't really doing that much for me. It was very slow paced, where I felt like, and I say slow paced, not, again, it still feels like it's rushing. It still feels like we're doing these crazy like things here. But so much of this book was just asking questions and getting exposition that it felt like, okay, can we maybe, I don't know, show something else? Can we like have something else happen at any point? No? Okay, whatever. So yeah, 7. Legends of Tomorrow, the Firestorm story, number 2, written by Gerry Conway, art by Eduardo Pansica. So, last issue, there was something going on with Jason, and he was like passing out, and something was going on with their Firestorm state, and we see them flying over to Dr. Why am I blanking on his name? Professor Stein, there it is, and is like, oh my god, please, you gotta help us, something crazy's going on. And Stein goes over, he plugs in some stuff to computers, he says a bunch of techno jargon. Both Jason and Ronnie are like, in English, please. And he's like, I need to split you guys up or else you're gonna explode. So he pushes a button, manages to force Firestorm apart. And as they land in different sides, everything seems to be okay for the moment. It's like, yes, we split you up. Fantastic. So Jason gets up and he's like, what just happened? My last memory was I was in the middle of an interview and then nothing, just blackout. And they were like, dude, you like passed out and like things are not okay. So Stein looks at some of the technologies like, well, whatever's going on, it seems to be based off of Jason's psychology. Something in his brain is no good right now, and that's what's messing up your waveforms being out of sync and yada, yada, yada. But he basically says, look, my research is in the hands of Multiplex. I can't get it. So in the meantime, don't turn into Firestorm again. So we cut to a government base in Alaska, and we see a van pulls up and it's way too late for deliveries, and out comes Multiplex, and he's like, aha, yes, it is I. So he storms the base. It only takes him like, how long? 5 minutes. And inside the base, we see that there is a researcher there who's managed to crack cold fusion. And Multiplex is like, awesome, fantastic. You're done what I need you to do. Bye. And he blasts the guy, kills him, and walks out. However, one scientist was left alive who calls General Eiling and says, we've got a level 8 emergency. So we cut back to the high school, and we see that Jason and Ronnie are both talking to Tanya. Tanya's like, what? Yeah, it was stupid for you to turn into Firestorm. He's like, it was the only thing that got us there in a reasonable amount of time. That's the only way we would have known any of this stuff. So Jason and Ronnie are doing some ribbing about like, oh, you could have killed me, yada, yada. And as Tanya's walking away, Ronnie jumps in and says, hey, how would you like to come over and hang out? You know, Netflix and chill. And Jason's just like, whoa. I am her friend before you are. If anyone's going to Netflix and chill, it's going to be me. And they start arguing with each other, talking about how they want to go on a date with her. And Tanya comes up and just says, hey, you know I'm gay, right? And just walks off. And both of them are like, what? Which, good moment. We cut over to some random ass base in Georgia. And we see that General Eiling is there. And he's like, all right. We got a level 8 emergency. This multiplex guy walks in. Multiplex used to work with Professor Stein. Professor Stein is a rogue physicist, so go find him. If we're going to get some answers, it's going to be from him, and we're going to activate Project Containment, whatever that may be. So we go back to the interviewing place where Jason's trying to get an internship. They were willing to reschedule because, he had a medical emergency. We see that he's sitting there with... whatever her name is, Monica, the other girl who's like his intellectual equal, and I cannot get a read on Monica. She looks bored out of her mind to be there, and then she says good luck with a smile, and then as he leaves, she just calls him a jerk. So, I don't know. Regardless, he gets into the interview, and he's like, oh, yeah, you're working with quantum stuff. Why don't you tell me about that? And Jason's like, well, quantum. And then he starts having a seizure. And as he's killed over on the ground, we cut over to Ronnie, who gets approached by some coach or something from a prep school also in the county. It's not a college. This isn't a college like, oh, here's your scholarship. This is a high-end high school, the same level that he's at. And he's like, hey, you're doing great. We love your stuff. Why don't you come over and you play for Bradley Prep? And he's like, oh my God, that's fantastic. Going to Bradley means I can get a full scholarship pretty much anywhere I want. When do I have to do it? And he's like, well, we want you to do it immediately. And he's like, oh, but there's one more game left in the season. And the game happens to be against Bradley Prep. To which he's like, yeah, I know. So are you in? And he's like, can I think about it? He's like, yeah, you have until the day before the game. So one of his friends come up and he's like, Ronnie's just like, I don't know if I should. Isn't that just betraying the whole team? And they're like, no, dude. People change teams all the time. This is an amazing offer for you. Take it, man. Like, what's one more game in the season to the rest of your professional career? Like, do it. Everyone's cool with this. But Ronnie, for some reason, unable to hear it. And then he looks at his phone and sees that Jason is once again in the hospital. So he runs off. We see that Stein is actually the one looking over him right now. He's got, like, head stuff on. And Jason's dad is like... None of this stuff happened before he became Firestorm. Like, he never had a history of seizures, none of this stuff. Like, what, did you make him epileptic? And it's like, no, that nothing to do with the Firestorm stuff. This is its own thing. And, like, he might not be epileptic. He could just have seizures. Like, that's a thing. But the dad's not willing to hear it. His son's in a coma. It's a whole thing. And Stein pulls a little device out of his pocket, and he's like, look... I think that Jason's portion of the Firestorm Matrix might have become unstable. It's a whole thing. I don't know how it's possible to reverse the effects, but I do have another option, which is I can take the Firestorm Matrix out of him. It will be permanent. He will never be Firestorm again. And immediately the dad's like, do it. Anything for my son. Let's get this over with. So Stein activates the thing. There's a whole big flash of light. And then Jason loses his half of the Firestorm routine. To which Ronnie's like, but wait a minute. You said the Firestorm needs 2 people. Who's going to be the other half? If this is how we get the status quo. Professor Stein takes on being the other half. He brings it in, and we see that he's just yelling inside of Ronnie's head. And Ronnie's like, hey, we're sharing the same space. You don't have to shout like we're actually like flying and are like distant apart. And he's like, oh, right, yeah, sorry. I guess you would know more about that. And so they're flying over the Great Lakes. They're doing whatever. And they almost get hit by a plane. And Ronnie points out that when he was fused with Jason, Jason was just in the back seat. But with Professor Stein, it feels like they're both fighting for control. To which point, Professor Stein's like, oh, okay, well, then you take control. Like, you have much more experience with this stuff. I don't know anything about it, but I hope you'll listen to my advice anytime I give it. And he's like, yeah, that's basically how we did it before. All good. So they start flying through. And Ronnie gets the clarification from Stein, like, yeah, I'm now the other half of Firestorm. Like, I can't undo it again. Undo it once from Jason was risky as hell. To do it twice would be almost certain doom. So no matter what, we're together now. We're Firestorm, and we're going to work together to save Jason. And then we get one last page of Eiling, who goes out to the base. We see a bunch of people are being punched and kicked and thrown all over the place, and he interrupts the Major in order to say, all right, we've gotten to go on Operation Containment. Danton Black is out. We want to get our hands on Professor Stein and Firestorm. And you remember Firestorm, don't you? Major Force. I'll be honest, I don't remember Major Force ever meeting Firestorm. I remember him in Voodoo. He was in the book Voodoo. I don't remember him ever meeting Firestorm, but that was also like multiple years ago, so who knows. So it's a retcon. Like that's the big thing. The Legends of Tomorrow, the namesake of the book, is kind of pulling from the fact that there was a TV show in the Arrowverse that had Firestorm in it, and that was Ronnie and Professor Stein. This feels like it's just trying to get in line with that, which, fine. Okay, we're going into Rebirth. We're getting back to some roots. I'm fine with Professor Stein being the other half, but it does feel like that should have been the point of the whole book. Like, we should have been leading up to, issue 6 is, oh my god, and now finally the reversal. Now Professor Stein is back in there. No, it's issue 2. Okay, I don't know. It just feels weird to me. It feels like that should have been, like, the focal point of all of this is leading up to the switch. So, I mean, it's not bad the way it happens. It's fine. It's absolutely just kind of a Deus Ex Machina, but it's fine for what it is. I just kind of wanted that to be the thing, because now it's a multiplex and this all other stuff. Hopefully you can get a little bit more of the Jason stuff, and he's not just a MacGuffin of, we got to go out and get the research for Jason, who's just still in a hospital bed over there. Yeah, I'll say a 7. It's okay. It's not great. It's just, it's different than from what I would have wanted. And that's not to say it's bad. It's just different. Legends of Tomorrow, number 2, the Metamorpho story, written and art by Aaron Lopresti. So last issue was kind of just a big setup. Metamorpho is being kept under lock and key with this orb that's locking down his powers. We meet Sapphire Stag and Java, and Java's trying to kill Metamorpho, and he seems super angry. So we open up this story where Sapphire's being like tossed around the room by Java. She tries to call her dad, and Java just punches the comms. It's just like, no, you're just protecting Rex Mason, Metamorpho. And Metamorpho's in his cell just like, what do you mean protecting? Come over here, I'll kick your ass. And he's like, yeah, do it. Come on, let's get in here. And Java just gets more and more riled up as Metamorpho like plies him. He's just like, oh, you're not even a human. You're just a monkey. You're just a monkey playing human. And Java gets so pissed off, he punches into the cell. He throws a few hard punches at Metamorpho, but it knocks the orb away. And without the orb nearby, Rex is able to use his full Metamorpho power set. So he immediately starts laying the smackdown on Java. He says how he's essentially about to kill him. And that's where Sapphire comes in, just like, stop. Look, you're more human than he is. Don't become the monster that you seem to be. Like, to have control, don't kill somebody. And he's just like, all right, let's go out. Let's try to find a cure and all that stuff. Well, I guess she doesn't immediately say that, but he's like, look, you've got to start controlling your powers, doing all that stuff. And then the alarm starts going off, and Rex just punches through a wall. She grabs hold of the orb and just like, all right, let's get out of here. So he manages to come up with the idea of turning himself into hydrogen in order to carry them out. I feel like there's still some weird weight stuff about that, but regardless, he's like, yeah, see, I'm able to do this. And then he's like, okay, by the way, we need to get to Egypt to solve this problem because that's where the orb came from. How are we supposed to do that? And she's like, oh, I can solve that problem. So we go over to Simon Stagg. He's in his mansion or whatever. An assistant comes in. It's just like, hey, there's been a disturbance at the facility, but they can't do anything about that because the roof explodes. And in comes Kanjar Rowe, who I said last time I believe was a Green Lantern villain. I stand by that. He just immediately kills the assistant, being like, oh, this is a private conversation. And then they just get to talking about the logistics of providing this power supply. Kanjar Rowe basically says, look, we had a deal. You came to me to help you advance your technology, and you said you would be able to give me that power source. What's up? Where's the power source? He's like, I'm still doing experiments. The deal was you get it after I'm done with it. And he's like, no, I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't change it further. And he's just like, oh, well, if you knew where it was, you would be out to get it right now. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. So Kanjaro slices the head off of a statue that happens to look suspiciously like him. And it's just like, all right, well, you know what? You double-cross me again. You've only got 3 days, and then I'll kill you. So we see that Sapphire's flying the plane, and she's like, yeah, you know, I'm a pilot too. I had a whole lot to prove growing up, and yada, yada, yada. And she basically says, all right, tell me the whole story. I feel like I've gotten a story from my dad. What's the actual story here of what happened back in that thing? And he's like, all right, well, the real story is everything is true. Rex Mason actually is this super awesome Indiana Jones type. I fought a Yeti once. That actually happened. And a couple of months ago, Stag came to me saying an energy source he discovered in Egypt. I was going to go alone. He forced Java to come along with. You know, I wasn't thrilled with that, but we went into the place, we found the energy source, and as soon as we got it, Java started trying to kill me. He choked me out, and by the time that I came through, he had tied me up, and he was going to inject me with a serum vial thing that would break me down into my loose elements, according to him. And he's such a sadistic freak that he sat there and watched it happen. He saw my body changing and all that. However, because of the power source of the orb or something like that, it all combined together and I became this. I'm still man, but I am in control of my own base elements. And Java, seeing that I wasn't going to die, dragged me out of there to be investigated by Simon Stagg. They kept the orb on me, which kept me sedated, and yeah, that's where we're at now. And she's like, that's a very different story from what my dad told me. And Penor was like, yeah, your dad sucks. He's an evil, evil man. Like, I don't see why you think you should trust him. It's just like, oh, hold on, why? You think he sent Java to trash his own lab? Like, why would he do that? And it's just like, he's always duplicitous. That's always what it is. Do not trust him. It's just like, all right, whatever. So we then cut over to Simon and Java, and Simon's just shouting him down, just being like, luckily you didn't ruin my plans. Like, I have so many bigger plans moving in circles you can't possibly comprehend, but take your goddamn meds and stop messing with my shit, man. And she's like, oh, well, what about, Sapphire? She got taken by Metamorpho, and just like, my daughter can handle herself. I'm not worried about that. Would you, for the love of God, get on your meds. So Kanjar apparently is tracking the energy source out from his spaceship. He realizes that it's left the lab, and it's just like, oh, okay. So the reason he was stalling is he doesn't actually have the energy source anymore. Screw Stag, we'll deal with him later. Let's go track it, but stay cloaked. I don't want anyone to know we're following. So we go to the pyramid where everything was found. It's all sealed up, and they're saying like, oh, we could break through the door. Like, we've got to figure out how to knock it down though without setting any traps off. And she's like, why don't you just turn into a gaseous state and then you can slip right through the cracks in the stone? And he's like, I don't like the fact that you know more about me than I know about me. She's like, well, I've been studying you for a while. He's like, yeah, I don't like that part either. So they get inside. It's super dark in there, and she's like, oh, you can turn your arm into phosphorus. He's like, stop it, seriously, I don't like being treated this way. So as they make their way up, he can read hieroglyphics. He knows exactly how to get back into the back chamber room. And when they get in there, they notice that it's glowing with the same energy as the orb. And it's like, okay, well, it's blocking my powers. I can't do anything at the moment. But as he goes up, he can read the hieroglyphics. He sees a hieroglyphic that looks exactly like himself. And he's like, I was so entranced by the orb, I wasn't even thinking about this hieroglyphic. And also, after the fact, I was too messed up. But like, now looking at it, yeah, that's definitely me. I'm the key to all this, but I don't know what all this is. So they take the orb, set it down on the pedestal. Immediately, a bunch of other orbs start filling in the empty slots in the walls. Energy starts spiking across all of them, and it turns into a teleportation pad that teleports them clear across seemingly the galaxy to where there's a giant-ass fight going on, gladiator style. So, yeah. We're taking twists I didn't expect to twist to. I mean, I'm fine with the ancient Egyptian aesthetic. That's fine. That's cool. You want to throw in Java and like the sci-fi elements? Cool. Down. Awesome. Taking those sci-fi elements to outer space in issue 2, that's a swing. Hopefully it'll work out. I'm not opposed to it, but it is just a weird transition. So Yeah, it's not bad. Like, it's not a bad issue. I like the clarifications on the backstory and all this extra stuff. The idea that Metamorpho might have, like, a bigger role in all this, but it's also Metamorpho. And I don't feel like this is doing anything to push him over in my eyes. It kind of just still feels like, yeah, we know he's B tier. We're not going to try for anything bigger than that. So, and I'd say B tier very liberally. I'll give it just a flat 7. It's okay. It's good even. It's just not doing anything fantastical for me. Not yet. And it is very wordy at times, which it makes it a bit more of a slog to get through. Legends of Tomorrow, number 2, the Sugar and Spike story, written by Keith Giffen, art by Bilquis Evely. So, I mean, this is a very episodic story so far. Last issue had a thing to do with getting one of Batman's rainbow suits and his more embarrassing bat suits from Killer Moth. This issue opens with Superman on a Skype call with Sugar and Spike being like, okay, so here's the deal, guys. I need you to go and get a storage of kryptonite that I put together once. And they're like, why did you store kryptonite? He's like, I was very young. Here's the thing, though. It was on an island that I made, again, while I was young. And the island is in the shape of me. And we get a top-down view, which is literally just Superman doing the Superman pose, but it's an island. And Sugar is like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And Spike is like, I mean, it would be, unless, I mean, this is Superman. She's like, that gives him a pass. And he's like, yeah. So they do a water landing. They make their way down onto the island. And Sugar just cannot stop chewing out Superman. Like, I don't care how young he was. I don't care about any of that. Like, this is the dumbest thing. He was storing the one thing that could kill him on an island that looked exactly like him. And the whole reason that's a big deal right now is that he never actually checked when he was building the island that it was in international waters. Like, this is actually just belonging to Costa Rica. So a bunch of developers have moved in and they're making condominiums. So at this point, they do a bit more walking. They get onto the beach. Sugar says how much he hates the beach. And he's like, what's there not to like about the beach? And she's like, sand gets everywhere and it's right in front of the world's largest urinal. And Spike is like, okay, fair enough. So as they start making their way through, they try to make a lay of the land here. And as they get through, they come across the construction company. The whole building's going up, all that stuff. However, it's 2:30 on a weekday and nobody's working. Everything is dead silent. And it's just like, something's going on here. Something's wrong. Let's just get to the vault and get out of here. And Spike's like, but what if something happened to the people? We should deal with that. And she's like, I'm sure something did happen to them. That's not our job. But then all of a sudden they hear gunfire from nearby and Sugar's like, all right, fine. So they get out their tranq darts and they start lurking around the island, seeing what they can find. They follow the gunfire to a absolute bloodbath. A bunch of people are dead, as well as a bunch of toys have been dismembered. And it's like, what is that all about? So they make their way deeper into this construction area. And inside, we see that there are a bunch of toys that have been repurposed, changed up to have all of these horrific weapons attached to them, and they're all completely brutal. And we see one of them is being led by a specific type of toy. It looks like a Barbie, but it's called a Tiffany Trueheart. And Sugar's like, I had one of those when I was a kid. I ripped off its head and threw it into a wood chipper. But we see Tiffany Trueheart is basically saying, look, where is it? You just tell us where the secrets are and we'll be out of here. We won't have to kill anybody else. But I swear to God, if you say you don't know where the secrets are again, I'm going to have to keep killing you. And they're like, we have no idea what secrets specifically are you talking about. We don't know what you're looking at. And she's like, this is an island that looks like Superman. Of course it's going to have secrets in it. Just tell us where they are. So we see that, they have machine guns. They have very brutal weapons here. And they're trying to figure out, hey, how many rounds do you think they've used? Do you think it's safe to go out there? And Sugar's just like, okay, I'd rather not be sitting back here the whole day doing all, like, just watching them get killed one by one. And Spike's like, well, I don't want to be target practice for all of them evil toys or whatnot. Turns out he doesn't get a say. He gets pushed out by Sugar, and he's just standing there like, hello. So the toys start chasing after him. Somehow they're not shooting him dead immediately. And then Sugar goes and takes a shot at Tiffany Trueheart. However, they are just like trank darts. They're anesthetic darts. So it doesn't actually do anything to her. So she takes the initiative to shoot the weapon out of Tiffany's hand. When she drops it, she runs over, grabs it, picks it up, moves it out of the way, and then she just kicks the head off of Tiffany Trueheart. And she seems so proud about this. So we see that somehow Spike off panel has managed to handle the rest of the toys. Sugar goes up to the guy in charge, just being like, "Hey, is that all of them? Did we handle all of them?" She's like, "Oh, yeah, sure." We don't even know where they came from. It was just business as usual. And then they just showed up here. And it's like, well, someone obviously smuggled them in. Did someone call in sick today? And he's like, I mean, I can check for you. And she's like, I really don't care. I'm just telling you where to start looking. By the way, when you put our report together, leave our names out of it. Okay. And she's like, what? But you saved us. And it's like, yeah, but we don't want a part of this. So she's carrying the head of Tiffany Trueheart with her through the jungle because it's still talking. It's safe. It's not doing anything, but it's still just saying how it wants to kill all of them. So as Spike's like, why didn't you just like leave that there? She's like, I didn't think that they were going to be able to handle it. Like they immediately folded to a bunch of toys that were sneaking up on them. But as Tiffany continues to mock and berate, Sugar just shoves it against a tree and starts bashing it repeatedly until it like sparks and dies. So they make their way through the jungle until they end up at the part that makes up Superman's crest, which is a mostly water-filled area, but with the S being part land. So we see that Sugar manages to come across a keypad. Superman gave him the code to get in. She types it up and a bridge starts raising up. And they're basically talking about like, yeah, I guess someone figured Superman had to have been hiding something here. So I wonder why he made it so obvious. And Sugar is barely listening to what she's saying, just being like, yeah, any idea who those doll things belong to? And Spike's like, I don't know, Lex Luthor? It's like, nah, this isn't Lex. This is somebody else, but whatever. We'll figure it out later. So they make their way over to this cliff face. They enter another keypad, and Sugar's like, okay, so the only thing we got to do is relocate the kryptonite. That's the number one thing. And he's like, what, all of it? Like, it's Superman. What if he collected like a mountain's worth? And as they walked in, it's a box. It's like a box that's no bigger than like a lunchbox. And just like, all right, there it is. Let's get out of here. So they grab it. They make their way out. And as they're leaving, Sugar points out, like, yeah, Krypton was however far away. The odds that much kryptonite landed on Earth at all are so extremely low that it's amazing we even have this much. So, yeah, there's no way that there was going to be that much kryptonite. And they walk out of the jungle, past the doll head, which was still laying on the ground, to which we see it whirs back to life. And particularly one of its eyes reveals that it's a camera feed, and someone who was working on toys in their workshop spins around and says, well, of course you realize this means war. And it's some woman. I don't know who this is. And I really love the art style. Like, Bilquist's evilly fantastic. I really have nothing bad to say about the art style. Even the story itself, I like the premise of it in terms of, you know, these embarrassing things that superheroes have to come to Sugar and Spike in order to just keep out of the news, keep quiet, do that sort of stuff. I'm solid on the premise. The only thing that I'm not getting out of this is the dynamic between Sugar and Spike. Like, it feels like they don't like each other. It feels like they genuinely have this disdain towards each other, or at least Sugar does towards Spike. Spike seems neutral at best, but he doesn't feel like super friendly. I'm not saying that it needs to be friendly. I'm not saying that, like, I need everyone to be all pal and whatever, but I don't understand why these two are a team if it's constantly like this. You know, I just need something to glue these two together a little bit. Maybe this goes back to the original book. Maybe this is a thing where it's like, oh yeah, no, they were always at each other's throats. But like, give me something. Give me something to latch onto, even if it's an explanation as to why they're like this. So yeah, I don't know. That's just the weirdness to me. As I'm reading through this and I'm like, Spike got pushed out in front of gunfire by Sugar, and they just say, yeah, all right, whatever, cool. I don't like that you did that, but we can move on past it. Like, can you? That's a lot. So, yeah. I'll still give it the 8. I still think it's a fun enough read, and the art is fantastic enough. I really don't have much bad to say about it, but it is that tiny little character interaction that I can't shake, and I just want a little bit more info on. Maybe we'll get that in the next 4 issues, but it's getting to me. Legends of Tomorrow number 2, the Metal Men story, written by Len Wein, art by Yildiray Cinar. So last issue, we got an introduction to a villain called the Nameless, but the big thing was that the Pentagon said Metal Men are to be destroyed the very next morning. So we open up this issue with a truck coming in, make a delivery at the military base where the Metal Men are held, and we see it's just some dude, he's got a cigar, and obviously it feels suspicious, and the guy's like, oh, why are you here so late? Like, it's well after delivery hours. He's like, my GPS got all messed up out in the desert. I ended up like miles away. His security guard's like, yeah, all right, I get that. He opens up the back of the truck. We see a bunch of food. This is all meant for the mess hall. And he's just like, all right, seems good enough. Mess hall is the last white building down at the end of that road. He's like, all right, thank you. So he makes his way down there, seemingly. But we cut over to inside one of the labs where Dr. Lace is talking to General Skeletti about, is there anything we can do to change the Pentagon's mind about the Metal Men? And he's like, nope, no way at all. And frankly, I'm a little bit concerned with the fact that Doc Magnus isn't here. Like, what's up with that? And General's like, oh, he had a do not disturb sign on his door and all this stuff. He's just a rich little boy and we're taking away his toys. He's going to pout and all that stuff. So at that point, he's like, yeah, well, I still feel like he would be doing everything possible to get the Metal Men and like change Pentagon's mind. It's weird that he's not doing anything. And then we cut over to the guy in the truck and we see that he has stopped at the Metal Men's base, the place where they're being held at night. And the narration is just like, yeah, if I'd been in charge, this place would have been swarming with security guards, but General doesn't think it's necessary because she changed all the passcodes on the door recently. However, when I built the place, put in a backdoor passcode. And so the guy walks in, we see the Metal Men are all in their hibernation chambers. He presses a button to wake them all up, and immediately they're at his throat like, who the hell are you, bald guy with a cigar? Well, and he's just like, easy, you guys just gotta listen to me. We gotta get out of here. And they're like, why should we listen to you, bald man? And he's like, oh, right, I've still got the thing on. And he deactivates his hollow mask to reveal, of course, it's Doc Magnus. And he's just like, yeah, cool, we're here, awesome. Anything, we got to get out of here. And I know exactly how we're going to get past the security guards. And he pulls out a can of spray paint. And we don't get to see what immediately happens next. But a few minutes later, he turns around, he makes his way to the exit. Guy's like, hey, I'm going to need you to open up the back of the truck. And so he does, completely empty inside, literally nothing. And he's like, all right, fair enough, see ya. So he takes off down the road. We then cut to 1 minute before the Metal Men are meant to be destroyed. We see that Skeletti walks in with Dr. Lace, and there's a bunch of security guards. Just like, well, the doc never showed up. I guess he doesn't want to say goodbye to his creations. Oh well. And as they walk into the room, she presses the button to wake up all the Metal Men, and they're not waking up. To which point she walks over and touches one of them, and they're all holograms. And she's like, ah, son of a bitch. And General even yells out, Magnus! So at that point, he's just like, well, I mean, you can hardly blame him. How would you feel if someone threatened to kill your babies, General? And General's just like, that's why I don't have kids. Anyway, let's go. Lock down on the base. We got to figure out where he is. So because they never saw anyone leaving the base, they never saw Magnus leaving, they assume that he's still there. But before they can do too much of a lockdown, Nameless shows up and is like, hey, where's my Metal Men? He's just like, shut up, Nameless. They're not your Metal Men, and we don't even know where they are right now. He's like, oh, so you lost them? Nice. And he disappears. She turns to the twins who were trying to do the trace on Nameless last issue. Turns out it came from a signal in her own phone, so no sense in trying to figure that out. We then cut to a cabin deep in the mountains where the truck has shown up and is pulling into a garage. And it turns out the truck itself was the Metal Men's. The spray paint was to spray paint them and make them appear the color of the truck. So they all turn out and is just like, oh yeah, that was brilliant, Doc, fantastic. And I think it's Mercury is like, yeah, says you were in a wheel the whole time. To which Tin is like, I was honored to be a wheel. So they get out and they're like, all right, so what's up? Why are we here? What's this cabin out in the woods? And before they can do anything, a bunch of lasers pop out and they all start shooting at them. Lead provides cover as gold and platinum make reflective mirrors, shooting the lasers back and destroying the guns. All of a sudden, Figure shows up in the front door, just like, hey, man, you didn't have to destroy my lasers. They were expensive. And he's like, didn't really have much of a choice. He's like, fair enough. Anyway, they weren't meant to hurt you. You could have called. And he's like, we really couldn't. Anyway, can we come in? And he's like, yeah, all right, come on in. And as they get inside, Magnus introduced, saying like, all right, you guys, Metal Men, this is an old pal of mine, one of your spiritual uncles, you could say. And it's revealed that it is Cliff Steele, a.k.a. Robot Man. And he just stands there posing as everyone else comes up and they're like, wow, another robot, fantastic. Oh, what are you made of? What's all this stuff? What's your boiling point? And he's like, hey, guys, I'm not actually a robot. I'm a dude, and I got into an accident, and a guy named Niles Calder transferred my human brain into a mechanical body. So I had some trouble accepting that. Now I live out here in the outskirts of nowhere where no one can find me. And they're like, oh, so you're not a robot? And it's like, no, guys, he's not a robot. He, however, because of the way he was built, also was not connected to the internet, like you guys. So therefore, he is essentially untraceable. So that's why we came here. The military wants to destroy you guys. I think Robot Man can appreciate not wanting that to happen. So can we be safe here? And Robot Man's like, yeah, whatever. Guest room's in back, do whatever. Tin comes up, tries to give Robot Man a hug, and he's like, Two conditions. One, you fix my lasers outside because you broke them and we need defenses. Two, keep this little creepy one away from me. And Tin's like, oh, man. So we then cut back to the base. They're just talking about, oh, no sign of Magnus, all this other stuff here. And then Nameless once again calls in, being like, hey, have you found my metal men yet? And Skeletti's like, oh, my God, go away. No, we haven't. I hate you. I hate you so much. And he's just like, all right, well, you forced me to play my hand. I gave you enough time here, and you have not done it. So check this out. And he cuts over to a video feed from Dr. Tio Morrow, who's freaking out. He's just like, oh, it was Project Cyclone. We were working on it, and it just self-activated. It took off. I don't know where it is. And so Nameless is like, just give me my metal men and I'll make it all go away. And Scully's like, God damn it, I don't have them. What do you want me to do? And it's just like, well, you better find out. So back at the cabin, we see that there's an old analog TV. Tin ends up making some antenna so they can get a better signal all the way down from the base. And they get a signal of a news broadcast from a local carnival. Or not carnival, amusement park, Four Flags amusement park, in fact, where Red Tornado has shown up and is causing chaos. And all the metal men are like, Doc, what do we do? And he's like, for the first time, I don't know. I mean, in fairness, while I understand his urge to be the hero and his urge to go out and do something, this literally has nothing to do with him. Except that, it was brought on by a villain that wants the metal men. I don't see how they should get involved in this at all. This is entirely outside of their purview. So, I mean, I like it. I'm down with it. I don't think I really have that much to critique in this one. Art style looks good. I like the reveal of how they got out. How they got in feels a little bit obvious. Like, you get that it's Doc Magnus before he gets there. How they got out, well, I was like, oh, okay. I thought for sure it was just like they morphed themselves to be like the back of the truck or something. Like it was a false back to it or whatever you want to call it. But no, it was just the whole truck. And then Robot Man, I mean, decently bringing that up. Hopefully it turns into something bigger and it's not just like oh yeah, check it out, Robot Man's in this issue. I'll say 7.5. I'm okay with it. It's not quite up to the 8 level. I don't quite think that, like, again, it feels like there's just kind of a cap for Metal Men. Like, unless you have an all-timer story here being told, it feels like the best you can do is an 8 on the best day of your life. Like, everything else is going to be a little bit less than that. So, 7.5, nothing to shake a stick at, but probably the best the Metal Men can really hope for. Dr. Fate number 11, written by Paul Levitz, art by Sonny Liu. So last issue, Khalid got a bunch of his friends, or at least colleagues, out of prison, and then he got grabbed by some gladiatorial ghosts, some ancient Romans. So we open up, name of the story is Great Caesar's Ghost, which chef's kiss. we see that, yeah, Caesar's down here, and he's like, oh, bring me the intruder. I want to check him out and all that. And immediately, Khalid is like, okay, I don't quite know what's happening yet. Like, this is weird because it all looks like ancient Roman stuff as well. And the helmet's just like, oh, time and distance are an illusion. He's like, yeah, you're doing great. Thank you so much for that. So he tries to use the same trick that he used on the Egyptian ghost to just kind of blow them away, but it doesn't quite work. And he's like, all right, well, that's a problem. So I'll use the other trick, which is falling through the floor. And as Caesar's going to grab his helmet, he just dips right down, and he's like, all right, perfect. I just got to find another way up that's away from them, and no problem. However, we see that the ghosts are not fooled by that. These Roman ghosts are able to go down, and they grab hold of Khalid, and they bring him right back up to the surface again. So as they're talking about this, it's just like, all right, which Caesar are you? Are you Augustus Caesar? Is this Caligula? Like, what's going on? And they're like, what do you mean, which Caesar? This is the only Caesar. This is Julius Caesar. It's like, oh, okay, got it. So at that point, he steps up. He's like, all right, the Romans declared me as a god upon my untimely death, and you are not one to defy God. So he once again starts going after the helmet. He's like, all right, you clearly robbed this from some temple or something like that, some ancient ancestors, but no matter what, you must die. So he starts coming after Khalid with a sword, and then all of a sudden, there's a voice off the panel that says, wait. We get a full page of Aquila just reaching out to all of her friends saying, hey, we need to get back out there on the front lines of the protest. And all of her friends are like, I'm grounded forever. I got arrested. No. So we cut back to the main story because that's all we get out of that. And we see that the Egyptian general guy is apparently the one who's commanding Caesar. And he's like, oh, you will do my bidding to achieve my ultimate goal of the government falling, and I will just recreate Egypt in my image and all that. And Caesar's like, bro, do you know who I am? I'm Caesar. You can't just whatever with me. And the general pulls out a knife, seemingly one of the knives used to stab Caesar in the back. And he's like, this gives me power over you. So Caesar bows before this general guy, and the general walks in. He's like, yeah, no, you definitely stole this trinkets and jewelry and all that from somewhere in a Middle Kingdom tomb or whatever. So I will take it and I will add its powers to the rest of my treasures. And we see he's got a whole bunch of other like ancient Egyptian artifacts nearby. Khalid thinks how pissed off he is that, like, oh, you know, people keep on calling me a thief and all that, but I'll show you how to use the amulet for sure. And as it goes around, grabs the necklace around his neck, it emanates some energy, which causes the general to, like, recoil. Like, it causes him some amount of pain. So the general pulls out a gun, and Khalid's like, I really hope I know how to deal with this. And the guy pulls the trigger, and the bullet just fizzles right in front of him. And he's like, all right, Nebu, I might be pissed off with you in general, but, like, thank you so much for that. And he's like, oh, you can control your own fate, Khalid, just do it. But then the general commands the ghost to kill him anyway. Cut to Khalid's mom doing some dusting in the guest room, and she's looking over some old archaeology artifacts that she has, and she's like, oh, it feels like only yesterday I was getting these out of the ground, and now I feel as old as you are. And as she's in the room, Puck the cat comes in, and she's like, oh, Puck, you always seem to know more than you're letting on. I'd be a crazy old cat lady if I didn't meet my husband. And then Puck looks up being like, there are good things to come to those who worship cats, Elizabeth. And she's like, what? And he's like, never mind, goodbye. Just walks off. She seems to be in a daze, though, so probably won't remember it. We cut back to Khalid. The ghosts are trying to stab him with their spirit swords, and he is like, no, you know what? I got power inside of me. I'm going to go ahead and use it. So he starts sending off fate magic everywhere. He's like, oh, it is not my fate to be killed by you. Back or I'll throw you back in your graves. And he ends up making a force field around him that none of the other ghosts can penetrate. And he blasts it away, knocking all the ghosts down. However, Caesar's still alive, and Caesar has more power as a ghost than the rest of them. So the general pushes him in, saying, like, oh, I control your power, you answer to me. So Caesar comes in, starts ripping apart the fortress, and he's like, oh, geez, he's way too strong. I don't think I can handle him. We then cut over to the father, who is driving his taxi around. he seems surprised that it's his time of prayer, and he's like, oh geez, it snuck up on me, I guess I need to go ahead and do this now. And he starts praying to Allah, and it's like, oh please grant my son strength, Khalid, he's going through so much right now. And I don't know if it's technically doing anything, but we see in the fight with Caesar, he's suddenly gets the spark of inspiration of like, wait a minute, hold on, Caesar's only attacking because the general told him to attack, and he's only listening because of that knife, whatever it may be. So right as he's about to get hit, fate zaps the knife, causing it to melt out of the general's hand, and Caesar's like, oh okay, hey centurions, we're gone, bye, and just whoosh, they all just fade away into the afterlife. So fate goes over to the general. He's like, time for your fate to be decided, and puts him into a big bird cage, flies him up out of this tomb, which seems to be in Egypt. I'm not sure how we got here, but regardless, sure. And he's like, oh, my only question is, you have all this magic, you have all this power, General. Why are you using it to hurt innocent people who just want to make a better country? And the general replies, better? Fa. We must make Egypt great again. To which Khalid says, thing is, every hollow slogan like that typically leads to only one result, collapse. And we see he collapses the catacombs with all the precious amulets. Well, not inside, he's actually bringing them away, but he can't go down and get any more. So as he's flying back to his home country, he gets a text or an email from the dean's office that basically says, because of your repeated unexcused absences, you are forced to meet with the dean in order to talk about your time moving forward. If you cannot excuse these absences, yeah, boy. So yeah, that's the issue. I think in trade, reading it all at once, it flows fine because it is all just one continuous story. It feels like, oh yeah, the Egyptian stuff, then the Romans and the general and like all that protest stuff. I think the past 3 issues probably flow very nicely into each other. Reading them month to month, as I have been, has been a slog. Not in like the most negative way. Like it's not like it's a horrible book or anything, but it's so slow. It is so slowly paced, and I think that is a turn off to the book to some extent. I all of this stuff of him being absent and all that, I feel like that's been going on for months. And it has been. It literally has been for months. But even then, it feels like the protest stuff has been going on for at least 4 or 5 months. This absent stuff is 2 or 3 months. It's just, I am fine with a decompressed book if it feels like we are building to something, but this feels like a decompressed book where we're still keeping the stakes so small that it doesn't actually feel like we are building to it. It's just constantly at the same level. Beyond that, I like the art style in this one a little bit. It's more cartoony. I know it's still Sonny Liu. I don't know what the difference is, but the ghosts themselves have this weird, like, Rocky Bullwinkle style to them, and it's endearing, to be honest. So, yeah, I guess I'd say this one is I almost want to say a 6.5. Is that fair? I don't know, but it feels wrong to give it the 7 because I reading this, as much as I love the Great Caesar Ghost lead-in, everything after that is just like, all right, sure, why not? So yeah, I'll say 6.5. It's a little disappointing. I'm hoping we can kind of pump things up a little bit. I know where the next arc is headed just from virtue of it's printed all over the trade, but like, I don't feel like we're aiming in that direction. I feel like we're going to be thrust into that direction just randomly. So here's hoping it gets better at the very least. Harley's Little Black Book number 3, written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Joseph Michael Linzer. So it's the Zatanna issue, and we open up with already the story's done. Zatanna and Harley are on the rooftop sunbathing, and she's like, yep, this is me and my best bud Zatanna. How do we become best buds? It involves a bunch of ghosts. Let me tell you about it. So then we cut back to some days prior, and she explains the backstory of how there was the London Legion of Superheroes that showed up on the doorstep in New York, and they were looking for a place to crash. Turns out that they're already renting the room out in like the guest room to a new act that's showing up as part of their thing. So they're all going to have to bunk in the same room as Harley, and we get a breakdown of each of their names. None of them are important except for one whose name is Pub Crawler, whose power is he gets drunk, he has acid vomit, and he can climb on roofs and stuff with his sticky secretions of alcohol. So we see that they're basically broke. They don't have any money, but they're going to see the sights anyway. So then we cut to, meanwhile, not too far away, Zatanna's coming in on her motorcycle. She stops by, runs into Big Tony, saying like, hey, I'm Zatanna. Are you Big Tony? I was hired for a 3-night engagement. And she's like, oh, yeah, this is the place. So Tony invites her up. And they're basically just saying, yeah, don't worry, we'll take your motorcycle around. Here's the guest room, best place in here. And Tony immediately tries to ask her out, like, so are you single? And she's like, I'm not really looking. And he's like, fair enough, my girlfriend would hate me, but tiss. So they trade keys so they can put away the motorcycle and then all that stuff. And he basically says, look, you got run of place. There's like a whole floor devoted to dogs and cats. Just don't go up to the top floor because that's where the landlady is, and the less you have to do with that, the better off. And she's like, that's weird, but all right. So then we cut to Coney Island, like actual amusement park style Coney Island. And there's apparently a place there, an old rundown thing called Hellgate, specifically Hellgate 2. And they have two guys, one that looks like just a generic-ass banker guy and then a construction worker, talking about how it's the last remnant of the old amusement park rides, and they're knocking it down for a burger joint. And he gives this whole history on it of how it was originally called Hellgate 1, and it's actually the same place, but they renamed it to Hellgate 2. And I wouldn't be surprised if this were an actual place in Coney Island with how much history they give it, but regardless, they say it's haunted. They say it's full of ghosts, but it's like, phooey. But at the same time, let's get out of here. So as they leave, we hear 3 voices inside that are like, oh no, they're going to destroy our home. We have to find a new place before the sun rises or else he'll find us. And then 3 ghosts come out. Each of them is part of a typical amusement carnival sort of thing. One of them is a ringleader. One of them is a ballerina, who's I'm sure is like a gymnast or something as well. And one of them has lobster hands. His name is Bob. He has lobster hands. So we see that they are looking out and they're like, oh, we have to find some place that's just as old as the place that we just came from. And as they're looking around, they find the wax museum. And it's just like, oh, this is the same wax museum that was back in the day. Let's check it out. And so they go in there. And I do want to point out just one small little art thing. They keep throughout the book changing whether or not this ballerina girl has tattoos covering her body. Just art-wise, they disappear and reappear constantly. I don't know what it's supposed to be. But regardless, they come into the wax place, and that's where everyone is starting to go to sleep. Harley has all the other Legion people in a room, except for Pub Crawler, who is currently out at the bar. He's absolutely sloshed. He is told he has to get a cab in order to leave, and he tells the cab driver, hey, take me back to Park Avenue. And as they make their way there, he gets to this like super fancy looking place, and it turns out that he has a daughter that he has never met who lives at this place, and he's intent on going to see her while being absolutely wasted. So as he enters, there's a night watchman he wouldn't be able to get past, so he uses his powers and his sticky secretions to crawl along the ceiling. And as he gets up to her apartment, he's like, oh, I should listen to the door and see if she's awake. And as soon as he like rests his head against the door, he passes out. We will eventually wrap that up. So we then go over to Zatanna. She's asleep in bed. Cheesecake fashion, she's wearing just her bra. And the ghosts all come in saying like, oh, geez, she's beautiful. And look at her stuff. She must also be a performer like us. And Zatanna sits up and goes, yes, I am. Can I please get some privacy and some sleep? Go hunt someone else. And they go, oh, Jesus, fly away. Turns out, as they said, most people cannot see ghosts. But Zatanna, of course, is special there. So and then they get up to the landlady's floor, which of course Harley. Inside is the Legion of Superheroes, the London Legion of Superheroes, and also a bunch of dogs and cats. And as they're hanging around, they're like, oh, geez, what's with all the dogs and cats? They can see ghosts. They can sense us. Humans can't, but animals can. And as soon as they're there, all the dogs and cats start howling and barking and hissing, to which Harley sits up and is like, oh, geez, stranger danger. reaches under her bed, pulls out a shotgun, and starts looking around. She sees the ghost come back down. They got spooked because of the dogs and cats, but they come back down and they're like, oh man, there are animals everywhere here. This must be a circus though, because check out the clown in the bed. And Harley freaks out because she can also see the ghosts. They don't recognize that immediately, but then she's like, oh, what is this? The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future? They're like, oh yeah, that's Christmas Carol by Dickens. I remember reading that a while back. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. She's able to see us. That's a whole thing. And as they say, they're like, hello, we'd like to set up shop here for eternity, please and thank you. We will be here. Don't worry about us. She's like, no. And just starts unloading shotgun shells on them. However, this awakens the rest of the London Legion, who start thinking that she's just gone crazy and is just shooting at nothing. One of them, who's particularly crass and curses a lot, is yelling at her, shouting like, oh, you nearly killed us. She's like, oh, there were ghosts. Tell me you didn't see the ghosts flying around you. And of course they didn't, but Harley gets all offended that they thought that she was going to shoot them. And she was like, I was taking good care to not hit you at all. And it seems like just as they're about to reach a breaking point, Harley's like, I was just fooling around. I love you guys. Don't worry about it. So Zatanna shows up. She walks in the door, full costume, and she's like, hey, I take it that someone saw a ghost in here because of all the gunshot. And Harley's like, I did. And they all gawk at how hot Zatanna is. And when she's like, yeah, I saw them. They were down in my room. You guys should go downstairs to my room since, there's gunshot holes all over the wall here. So they head out. And Harley's like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Or she's basically saying like, hey, do you have roof access? And Harley's like, oh, if we're doing a thing, then I need to change my work clothes. And once again, cheesecake shots as she gets changed into her outfit, to which Zatanna's like, wait a minute, hold on. Are you Harley Quinn? Like the Harley Quinn? You need to work on your PR. Like you've got a bad rap. And she's like, well, only like some of that is true. So they go up to the roof, which is where the ghosts are hanging out. And the ghosts are amazed of like, how can you both see us? Like no human should be able to see us. And Zatanna's like, well, I'm special in that way. And I don't really know why Harley can. And Harley's like, I hear voices all the time, but usually they're not attributed to anything. So Zatanna's basically asked, hey, what's going on? The whole time Harley's just like trying to grope the ghosts. But she asks what's going on, and they're like, okay, well, we'll give you the rundown. Some ancient evil is after us. It's a whole thing. Back in the year 1911, Coney Island was this huge amusement park. Everyone loved coming here, all this. And there was a ride called the Hellgate. It was run by a man named Jolly Stratton. And he would basically just pull people in and tell them, like, repent, sinners! This is your fate if you do not repent! And it's just hell and demons and stuff like that. Don't know why anyone would go on the ride, but regardless, the girl there, the girl ghost, is like, yeah, we were work friends. He asked me out on a date one time. I said yes. And he was just talking about cleansing the world and how his true masters would bring him power and all this stuff. But I was distracted because he had a bit of noodle in his beard, so I wasn't really listening. And then he took me out for some ice cream on the boardwalk and told me that he wanted to show me something. And I was a little creeped out, but I didn't say no until he brought me on the boat ride, the Hellgate, and he showed me this new part of the attraction, which was this huge flaming demonic mouth that you could walk into. And Harley's like, well, tell me you did not enter the flaming demonic mouth. You deserve to be killed if that's the case. And Zatanna's like, dude, stop. So at that point, she's brought downstairs. There's two hooded figures and an ancient cursed dagger. And of course, it's human sacrifice. That's what they're going for. So then Lobster Hands chimes in and is just like, well, me and Ricky, the ringleader, both heard some familiar screams from nearby. And Harley's like, wait a minute, why were the screams familiar? And she's like, because I slept around, okay? Is that what you want to hear? And then she just lists off like 40 different synonyms for sleeping around. And Harley's like, nice. So as they make their way down, without her being sacrificed, she's still alive, mind you, but Satan has shown up out of this, what's the term? Pentagon, whatever, shows up out of this. And Rick comes in, manages to fight Jolly Stratton and stab him with his own cursed knife, to which the demon, because it's not actually Satan, but the demon is laughing, and he grabs hold of Jolly, squeezes him real hard, his eyes pop out, but then he starts transforming into a stereotypical looking demon. And he's like, yeah, the devil made a deal with him, though, like told him out of his own sick, twisted sense of humor that Jolly was not allowed to hurt us three as long as we stayed within the amusement park, as long as we stayed within the original structures. And that's why we had to find an old building like yours. Zatanna's like, okay, cool. By the way, not the actual devil. The actual devil is someone different. That's just like a top level demon you're talking about. So they said that eventually they tried to leave. They were killed because Jolly was able to do that. And so their spirits are kept into the back because even when their spirits tried to leave, they were being tormented by Jolly as well. And Jolly is also now a spirit because his flesh was mortal, but his spirit's still demonic. So at that point, they get jumped on by like this giant shrimp creature looking thing. It's a ghost, though, so Harley and Zatanna are not affected by it. It can't hurt them or anything like that. But the ghosts are like, all right, we got to get inside because as long as we're in the old building, we'll be fine. So they go inside. Zatanna and Harley are like, okay, do we have any plans or we can do this? And it's like, well, Harley's like, if they just stay inside, then no problem. Like, everything's fine. And Zatanna's like, okay, but you're going to have them sticking around permanently. And people are going to wonder who you're constantly talking to. And she's like, they already do. No big deal. But Zatanna's like, no. The evil creature will constantly be trying to come at this place. It's better if we deal with this like permanently. So I'm going to take us to his plane. We'll send him back to the demon that created him. And we can do this. Let's go back down inside and we can take care of it. So as they go back down, Harley's like, wait a minute, are we going on like an actual ghost hunt here? Because if so, I need to change outfits again. And she changes into a completely off-brand Ghostbusters gear, which comes with all the proton packs and everything else. And the ghosts are like, does all that stuff really work? And she's like, no, not at all, but it looks cool. To which Zatanna says, you're going to be better off if you just have an actual weapon with you. So she grabs her mallet. Zatanna says a magic spell, take us to the spirit world, and nothing seems to change, but all of a sudden, Harley looks over at her bed, sees her beaver, and the beaver is now talking, and it's actually, like, there, for real. And she's like, oh my god, you're real? And the beaver doesn't seem to recognize Harley. It has always been in her head, but I guess the spirit has been following this taxidermy beaver the whole time. So, the beaver's just kind of trailing along for, like, 3/4 of a page here. Harley goes up to the roof, smashes the big bug that was waiting, but then they look out at the ocean and they see this super long line of demons that are all just waiting to attack. So Zatanna's like, well, we can fly because we're in the spirit world. They can't because they're low-level demons. They can't even imagine flying, but we can do it. So let's just zoom to the end of the line and see where they're all coming out of. And as they reach the end state of it, they go underwater and there is an old abandoned Nazi submarine, inside of which is Jolly Staten, and he's just sitting on his throne casting out demons, and he's just like, yeah, let me guess, you're here on the other 3 ghosts up there that I've been torturing. You want me to bargain for their souls? And Zatanna's like, okay, maybe you heard about me. I'm Zatanna. I kind of have a lot of power. Here's the deal. You tell me the name of the demon that has bound you to this form, has made it so that you can neither go to heaven nor hell, and I will free you from that, and you will be able to leave. And he's like, you don't have that kind of power. She's like, you want to bet? Like, you've heard my name. Say my name. And he's like, oh, Zatanna, all right. So he buys in. She gives her word, and he says, I'm going to let you stew on this one. He says the demon's name is Nad Oidid. So when she casts her magic spell saying, hey, I command that the demon show up, Nadoiad to show up and reveal himself, because she speaks backwards, it's whatever, Dan Didio, whatever. So they teleport into what seems to be this just absolute, like, pleasure fest is the best way I can describe it. Old ancient Roman looking architecture and just a lot of naked people making out. And as they arrive, they plop down in the pool. We meet Nadoidid, who does not look anything like Dandidio. He is this ripped, chiseled, stereotypical looking good guy. And he's just like, oh, I will send you to my hellhounds. How dare you interrupt me? And Zatanna's like, hold on, I'm Zatanna. This is Harley Quinn. We wanted to talk to you about Jolly Stratton. He was under your thrall, and we wish for you to release him. And Nad's like, Did you say Harley Quinn? Oh my God, I'm such a big fan. You send me so many evil souls. It's a whole thing. I am such a huge fan. And Harley's like, yeah, I'll prove it. And he's like, I'm sorry, what? And he's like, yeah, show me you're my biggest fan by doing that thing that Zatanna wanted. And he's like, that's not really how it works. It needs to be a deal. But yeah, if you want to cast a deal or something, how about you have to spend 1 month down here in the pleasure zone with me and all these other demons for 31 Earth days. And on the 31st day, I will return you. And Zatanna's like, Harley, do not make a deal with a demon. I swear to God, this is not going to end out well. And she's like, all right, do you promise to restore Jolly Staten and also do Zatanna's wish of like everything else taking place? And he's like, yep, absolutely. And it's like, all right, then we got a deal. And Zatanna's like, no, wait, don't. And he's like, nope, too late. Jolly's going to hell because he was a horrible person. Of course he should have gone to hell, but at least he's getting to leave. And Harley's going to be spending a month down here in the pleasure zone. And Zatanna's like, a demon is not to be trusted. I hope you understand that. And Harley's like, it's okay. Neither am I. So Zatanna gets out of there and Harley nuzzles up to Nado-eyed. So we then go to Zatanna's first show. We see that she pulls one of the London Legion out of the audience, seemingly without knowing them, and has them open up a safe. And out of the safe pops Pubcrawler, who, I'll just fast forward to the end of the story, apparently was in prison because his daughter opened the door, found he was passed out on her doorstep, called the cops, and he's just been jailed the whole time. And they had no idea where he was, so they didn't even know to check. So as he pops out of the safe, Zatanna's like, oh yeah, so now for my next trick. But then the safe opens again, and inside is Hellfire. And out pops Harley Quinn in a BDSM-y uniform, and a red cloud of Nado-eyed pops up saying, like, take her, for the love of God, get her out of my hair. And Stan's like, it's only been 24 hours, not even. Like, well, you were supposed to have her for a month. And he's like, she's insane, and I cannot deal with her. Please, I will give you whatever you want if you just take her back early. And Xana's like, I don't know. And he's like, I will give you all the treasures of the universe. For the love of God, please. And she's like, fine, whatever. Just, we'll take her back. Now get out of here. So we cut to how the story opened up. They're up on the roof sunbathing, and Harley's saying how she was basically just singing a song for 7.5 hours in a row, and that's enough to drive him insane. And it's just like, oh, okay. And they talk about the London Legion, say like, oh yeah, I hope that now that he's out of jail, they're going to go meet the daughter in person for real, and a good first impression, do whatever. And then Zatanna, who this entire time has been chastising Harley for her looseness with her sexuality, she's basically says like, oh, Harley throws out like, oh, I don't even know what it'd be like to make a daughter, like to create someone. To which Zatanna says, oh, well, it sure is fun practicing. Ho, ho, ho. And then they laugh as they make more sex jokes. Also, the beaver goes to chewing on a homeless man's wooden leg outside. Okay. That was a long one. It's fine. It's another Harley book. It's another Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti Harley book. I don't know what more I can possibly say about it because they're all the same. Every one of these books is functionally identical to any previous book. So, is it good? Yeah, it's well made. It's got a decent pacing to it, but like, if the humor is not your style of humor, I don't know what to tell you, man. It just isn't gonna work, and that's kind of where I'm sitting. So I can recognize the quality of the book. I can recognize the aspects to it. Still like a 7, a 6.5 for me. I don't know how to judge this one. Also, it's long. It's like twice the length of the normal book. I'll say a 7. I'll just say, sure, why not? It's a good read. It's not making me angry like some other Harley books are, so it's got that going for it. 7. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this April 20th, 2016. And yeah, I mean, again, I said it at the top, I'd say it now. You let me down, DC. You let me down. Because you didn't do something with the funny weed number. Yes, I am that immature. How dare you not respect it? Anyway, next week, not on the funny weed number date, we have a bunch of comics. We have a exceptionally long show. It's actually going to be the longest show we'll have until the end of the show, until we hit the post series. I say that, and then I'm going to end up talking about like Superman 52 for like 3 hours. So we'll see how that works out. But anyway, we have 16 comics, and in roughly alphabetical order, they are Batgirl, Batman, Black Canary, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Grayson, Harley Quinn, Justice League 3001, Omega Men, Secret Six, Sinestro, Suicide Squad Most Wanted, Deadshot and Katana, Superman / Wonder Woman, Teen Titans, and We Are Robin. I mean, 16 comics, and then one of them, the Deadshot and Katana book, is already a double length. That's already an anthology book. So, like, yeah, I'm kind of just screwed. It's kind of just going to be a borderline 3-hour-long episode. So, if anybody would like that, congrats. If anybody has to edit that besides me, good luck. Anyway, that is pretty much going to do it for me. If you have any comments that you would like to share on any of the comics I've talked about this week, last week, any week at all, really, you can go ahead and put them in the comment section down beneath this YouTube video. I promise I read them all. And the reason I can guarantee that is because there's like 2, max, ever. Not really that hard to get through, but I will check them out regardless. If you also do not want to share them there, or you're listening to, God forbid, the audio version of this, which is like, at this point, 6 months late, we have a subreddit and a Patreon and a Discord. I would stick to the Discord, but you're welcome to go wherever. Those are all available in links in the description, probably. I really have not checked that in about 3 years, so yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is consumed this podcast. Be sure to tune in next week and interact positively because my fragile ego demands it. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.